200 metres to go, but now Lewis, he runs those curves magnificently. He's really flying, but coming down is Carl Lewis, and also a strong finish here from Baptiste. America 1 and 2, they might get a clean sweep here. Yes, Lewis first, second, I think they've done it. I think they've got their clean sweep at last, 19.81, a new Olympic record for Carl Lewis. Again, he dips under the magic 20-second mark. He went under 10 seconds in the 100 metres. He's gone under 20 seconds in the 200 metres. A gold medal, and the Americans know it, 1, 2 and 3. Lewis, Baptiste and Jefferson, gold, silver and bronze in the 200. The first time they've taken out the clean sweep for 28 years.
Well, what a tremendous run. Tremendous run by Carl Lewis. They booed him yesterday, but they could only admire the determination that he ran with today. That is a fantastic time by Carl Lewis at sea level, 19.81, and that beats the previous Olympic record of 19.83 that was held by Tommy Smith, and he set that at Mexico City. Just have a look at the start again. Carl Lewis, and you'll watch the camera go around and track those powerful muscles of his as he really booms out of the blocks. Joao Silva on the outside going well, and look further in the track to the two other Americans, Thomas Jefferson and Kirk Baptiste. They tried hard down here, but look at Lewis. He really belts it in the home straight. He gives it everything he has, and you can tell that because he's going slightly wooden. All of these men are now running with exhaustion. Great run by Lewis, 19.81 we said. Baptiste is second, and Jefferson is third, and a great run from Joao Silva on the outside, just a young man to get fourth.
The Americans punching their arms in the air with relief and joy. Gold, silver and bronze to the United States. And for the third time at the Olympic Games, the long, tall Texan, the Superman of sprinting, Carl Lewis collects another gold medal.
So just look at the powerhouse muscles of this man. Look at his breathing in and blowing out with his cheeks. This man has rhythm, he has strength, he has everything physically to make him the most outstanding athlete here at these games.
Thompson, who's running in lane number 6. There you can see him to the left of the picture, who's probably doing best at the moment. Outside of him is Jürgen Hinkson, his great rival. The two of them at the top of the field, 200 metres to go. There's Hinkson on the outside, Daley Thompson on the inside. He has the faster time of 47.11. He's leading the competition by 78 points as they turn and swing up with 100 metres to go. Daley Thompson with a clear lead over Hinkson.
And just because he's in the lead, he doesn't ease up, because every hundredth of a second counts in this race. So he goes right down to the wire.
There's Daley Thompson leading the Germans, who are in hot pursuit. And coming through the middle, it was Jim Wooding of USA. Both are there as well from Italy. John Tracy, Nick Rose, Mike McLeod and Steve Jones from Ireland and Great Britain. All men with big international reputations in cross-country, 10,000 metres and on the road. It's a fascinating collection of road runners, cross-country runners and track stars, like this man here, Marty Viney, number 271. John Davies. Let's wait for the gun. Two Japanese runners on the outside, Kanai and Shintaku. And there's the gun for the start of the 10,000 metres final here at Los Angeles in 1984 at the Olympic Games. There's Marty Vineo, the tallest man in the field at 6'4", 193 centimetres, running with a headband, who's moved into third place. And the world champion, Alberto Cova, the smallest man in the field, he's presently lying in sixth position. There you can see him with the blue Italian colours of his singlet down on the inside, behind the tall figure of Marty Vineo. This is Zephaniah Nkubu from Zimbabwe, who's leading the field. And behind him is Zach Barry from Tanzania. Then Marty Vineo, as they go through the first 200 metres of the race.
So it'll be a cat and mouse affair initially. By the looks of it, people just going to settle in. 25 laps of the track they have to do. Only one American qualified, when three of them showed excellent form, all running well under 28 minutes, 27:45. And that man's Pat Porter. He's in the middle of the field. There he is in the grey uniform that they wear as an optional kit here in the Olympic Games.
So it's Nkubu from Zimbabwe through the first 400 metres, leading from Bari. And in third place is Marty Vineo from Finn, followed by Bitok from Kenya, the leading four runners.
And that's Pat Porter moving up on the outside now into third place to run beside Marty Vineo of Finland. And the pace, it looks pretty slow after seeing people like Joachim Cruz zap around the track, but they're running a good pace, just under 67 seconds for the first lap, which is certainly sub 28-minute pace. Steve Jones, number 375, hanging on the outside of the bunch at the moment. So the Africans, three of them at the front of the field at the moment. And of course people tend to think that they run as a team, but they like to be up near where the pace is. People might remember the tragedy of Dave Bedford in Christchurch in 1974, and I guess the glory of Dick Taylor that we had. The Africans really played havoc with Dave Bedford at the top of the field, but Pat Porter's going to match it with these people now.
And Kubu still leading after 800 metres. Moving into second place is the Sudanese runner Musa Gouda, number 778. Then the only American in the field, as John Davies said, Pat Porter. And in fourth place is Zach Barry, the man who finished second at the Commonwealth Games in Brisbane in 1982.
And the second lap came up slower than the first lap, 68 seconds.
The big audience, which is about 90,000 strong here, have been well primed for this 10,000 metre race, because one of the most popular movies showing across America at the moment is a movie called Running Brave, which is the story of Billy Mills, the man who won the 10,000 metres in a big upset at the 1964 Olympic Games in Tokyo. And it's a truly delightful movie. John Davies and I had the good fortune to be able to see it before the track and field program started. And it's getting rave reviews across America. So the crowd here today have had, if you like, a crash course in 10,000 metre running and know a little bit about the history to this event and its place in the Olympic Games.
In fact, Americans used to look at the 10,000 metre event as being the time when you went and bought ice cream and had a cup of coffee or a Coke, and that's not what they do now. In fact, this stadium tonight is packed to see this final. So 72nd lap that time. The pace quite dawdling at the moment for so many of these men.
Another interesting facet about the 10,000 metres, John Davies, is, of course, that it was only in recent years that they've actually reduced the 10,000 metres from one race to heats and a final.
Well, that was the Billy Mills story, in fact, in that Ron Clark put the pace on, and I think there must have been something like 30 runners in that 10,000 metres final, and they lacked the slower runners who have been eliminated here in the first rounds. So these men are all top quality runners, and that's I don't think we'll have too much trouble with any lapping here.
Heats were reintroduced in 1972. They used them in the first few years of the Olympic Games, but stopped them in 1920. But as John Davies said, the fields were getting so big, it was obvious they had to do something about it, so they introduced heats, and that's the pattern. These men all had to run in a heat 2 days ago to make it into the final. So that's the situation as they come down with 21 laps still left in the 10,000 metres. It's a slow pace, and the race at the moment is being led by the Sudanese runner Musa Gouda. The field have made their way round the back straight with just over 2,200 metres of the race having been completed, and there's been no change while you've been away at the top of the field. The only significance that happened while you're away is John Tracy, the Irishman that you can see there in the green singlet, who was at the very back of the field. In the space of about 200 metres, he swept right around to get himself in a nice handy position to the pace. But it's still Gouda leading from Porter. Then you can see Tracy in third place, and the man who's presently in sixth place is the world champion and the favourite for this event, Alberto Kovar, just going out of shot at the moment.
The pace actually picking up to a 68-second lap again. Very, very slow at the moment for such a class field.
And Marty Vainio, the tall figure there, you can see with the headband, you will remember him. At the very start of the race, he was right on the pace, but he's drifted back towards the end of it, so he's obviously feeling that this race is going to be run at a relatively slow pace, and so he's going to conserve his energy and stay comfortable at the back.
The evening here quite cool, ideal for running this 10,000 metres, and you get some idea of the vast crowd that's here. I would say it's a good 90,000 that the stadium holds.
It's now 8 o'clock in the evening here in Los Angeles. The sun has gone down and the huge stadium lights.
And that's Mike Musyoki coming round on the outside, running wide from Kenya. Another top road runner, used to hold the world record for 10,000 metres on the road at 27 minutes and 49 seconds. Steve Jones tracking him through, everybody watching each other.
But I was about to say, these huge stadium lights that they use here at the Coliseum create the effect of artificial daylight. So there's just a gradual transition down there on the floor of the Coliseum from natural daylight to this artificial daylight. Making their way down the back straight, they've completed about 2,500 metres of the journey. Quarter of a way through this 10,000 metre final.
So Pat Porter, number 933, I'm sorry, tracking Gouda from Sudan, who's also entered in the marathon, by the way. And Pat Porter last October set a world record for 10,000 metres on the road, running into the stadium to finish. You can see him puffing his cheeks out, having a bit of a cough. And when they measured the course after the run, it was found to be 70 metres short. So Pat Porter did not get that record. He's a very talented athlete, lives up in Colorado.
They crossed the start-finish line for the 8th time with 17 laps of the race to go, and it's still Moussa Gouda from the Sudan, who's had the job of pacemaker for about the last 1,200 metres. He didn't manage to make the final at the World Championships in Helsinki last year, when he only managed to finish 13th in his heat.
Actually interesting, in Moussa Gouda in the lead there, and Pat Porter are in this field not by the fact that they finished in the top 6 qualifiers for their heats. They had their fastest winners' times. They were lucky and are now here leading out this field at the moment. But the pace has not got on.
The world record holder is back there. You can see him fourth from the end in the blue. Fernando Mamedi, just a small, slight figure. He holds the world record at 27 minutes and 13 seconds, but it's pending. In fact, there's been some controversy about that. There's been a claim that he had 2 or 3 different pacemakers in the course of the race, and so an investigation is underway, and at the moment he isn't officially the world record holder. It has not been ratified.
Apparently what has happened is that some of the other athletes in the race slowed down, and when he came past them, they went and picked him up. Everybody being content to wait, and somebody shortly has to decide that they're going to do something in this race, because there are some very, very good sprinters.
And I imagine, John Davies, one of the men who will profit from this slow early pace will be Alberto Kovar, because we remember him in Helsinki last year when he ran 53 seconds for the last 400 metres to win the gold medal there, so he wouldn't be unhappy with this pace.
No, Kovar certainly won't be, and he's in blue in about 7th or 8th place there at the moment.
He has a blistering finish. He ran the last 300 metres there in 38.7. Now only 2 of the 1,500 metre finalists went quicker than that for the last 300. So he won't be voicing any complaints at all as they move through with just under 15 laps to go.
And another 69-second lap. So the pace actually at the moment is about 28.45 pace.
So that's the best part of about 90 seconds off that pending world mark of Mamedi's of 27 minutes and 13 seconds.
And John Tracy from Ireland is about to do something about it as he picks up the pace. Zach Burry is tracking in number 821. Zach Burry from Tanzania. Pat Porter right there. Steve Jones has come up as well. There's Kovar on the inside in the blue. And Mike Masioki on his outside.
So the role of pacemaker has fallen on the shoulders of John Tracy, the Irishman, former world cross-country champion, and another who couldn't make the final of this event in Helsinki last year, got no further than the heats. As they come down the start-finish line, and when they cross that line, they'll have 14 laps to go. 5,600 metres of the journey still left for this field of 18 starters in the 10,000 metres final.
And a 67-second lap that time, so that starts to make it more respectable. John Tracy doing what he has to do. Ex-world cross-country champion and not a track runner. And in fact, gained a notoriety, I guess, in Moscow because he failed to make the final of the event, and in his heats he ran so hard that he collapsed on the track, didn't make the finish.
There we see the Englishman Steve Jones also doing something about the pace as he goes up there, moving into third place. There you can see him getting our first look at him, number 375, Steve Jones, running there alongside Pat Porter, the American, coming down the home straight.
And in that little shuffle, you'd have seen Gouda putting his hand out, keeping somebody off his feet.
So we'll leave the track just for a moment. I believe there's some further...
And we will come back to the Coliseum floor in just a few minutes.
1,000 metres, and the story while you've been away is that a significant break was made by Nick Rose, the Englishman. He was unhappy about the pace. He went out and put 15 metres on the rest of the field. Marty Vainio went with them, as did Kova. They dropped Rose back, and these two, the two informed European runners of the season in 1984, Marty Vainio and Alberto Kova, have put the best part of about 30 metres on the rest of the field with about 8 laps to go. 8 laps and maybe 60 metres of the home straight.
And Vainio, who has run 27:41 this year, and just a very determined runner. In the World Championships, he worked and toiled to get the medal, and that's what he got. And here he is now again having a go in the Olympic Games. And this Antipo having a go, leading the bunch from Italy in third place at the moment.
Interesting point is here we have not seen Fernando Mamedi. Now he's either buried right at the back of the field or he's in fact stepped off the track, but we're just having some difficulty finding him anywhere at the moment. We certainly haven't seen him on the television screen, and if he is in the field, he's in a lot of trouble and well off the pace.
Well, there's one runner pulled out of the event, and I would say that it's Mameda who's pulled out because he can't be seen at the moment. But just look at Nick Rose's head roll. This Mike McLeod trying to chase these two, though.
Marty Vainio, the 1978 European champion. He's been an informed runner this year. He's run his fastest marathon of his life in 1984. He also broke Lassie Viren's 5,000 metre time this year. So he's throwing out a challenge to Kova. As we go back and have a look at the main bunch, that's the distance between them. Now it's the best part of about 60 metres. 7 laps to go. So is it down just to these two?
Well, it could be. It's a big break that they've made on the rest of the field. And Vainio not happy, I'm sure, about having Kova on his back.
And yes, there definitely is no sign of Mamedi on the track, so he is pulled out. He does have something of a reputation of never being able to bring up a big one for the meetings that really matter, and that pattern has continued here. The pending world record holder has pulled out of the 10,000 metres, and it's made the job easier for these two, Vainio and Kova. And hanging on to third place at the moment, number 380, was a 32-year-old Englishman, Mike McLeod. Behind him, number 590, Michael Musioki from Kenya. There's Nick Rose, Steve Jones as well. But the Englishmen, all three of them in this race, have got a lot of work to do if they want to get their hands on the gold or the silver medal, because it looks as if it could be going to these two men.
Well, Vainio showing a lot of pain on his face as he comes down with 6 laps to go.
That's the situation after 6 laps in the 10,000 metres. Well, as we mentioned before, it's been a very good day for New Zealand here at the Coliseum. That very good performance by Peter Renner, the personal best in the 3,000 steeplechase. We saw Zulant's Cross handing out the medals in the 110 metres hurdles, and at the moment up on the scoreboard, as you might be able to see, is a nice little gesture here from the organisers. It was, what, 48 years ago today that Jack Lovelock broke the world record and won the gold medal in the 1,500 metres at the 1936 Olympic Games. And the crowd here, if they bother to look up at the video board, can acknowledge that fact.
And there's Mike Musioki from Kenya, bathed in sweat in the lights of the Coliseum, trying to get up and get the third medal, but they're not going to catch these two out in front. They've gone too far ahead. Marty Vainio put in a winning break when he ran 62 seconds just over the halfway mark, and Kova, the sprinter, is tracking him all the way.
5 laps to go. And how would you fancy Vainio's chances, John Davies, if they're like this and with 400 metres to go? Would he have any chance against the Italian?
Well, he's trying to drop Kova because he's dropped in a 65-second lap again, and he's trying to get away from him, but it's not working. Kova just dogging him all the way.
Going down the back straight with 4.5 laps to go. Martti Vainio from Finland, country which has a marvellous reputation in the 10,000 metres. In fact, they've won a total of 15 medals in the Olympic Games in this event. That's 5 times more than any other country. And they're the only country that's made a clean sweep of the 10,000 metres back in 1936. Headed by the legendary Paavo Nurmi, they took the gold, the silver and the bronze at the Olympic Games 10,000 metres of that year. No other country has ever done it. And the 15 medals that they've won, 5 times more than any other nation. Marvellous sight here at the Coliseum, as it's now darkness here in Los Angeles, but the crowd of 90,000 sitting on the edge of their seats, watching the closing stages of the 10,000 metres final. And the gap now between those 2 leading runners and the next bunch must be the best part of 80 metres.
And Mike Musyoki moving out. He wants somebody else to help take the pace, but nobody wants it. They're going to be content to just battle out for that bronze medal. The gold is between these two, that's for sure. And you can see Vainio trying to stretch it out again. Look at the pain on his face. This man runs with all the determination that anybody could muster. Kova sitting in there coolly behind him. Musyoki can't give away the lead of the chasing pack. Mike McLeod sitting behind him, and Christoph Hurler from Germany and behind Mike McLeod. Vainio looks around, both of them checking where the rest of the bunch are. They know they're so far ahead, almost 80 metres, that they've got no problems at all. So the battle is here. What does Vainio do with 3 to go?
There it is, less than 1,200 metres left in the 10,000 metres final, and it's Martti Vainio of Finland leading from Alberto Kova. Kova, who looked so good in the heats here a couple of days ago, so controlled, so relaxed, and he's carried on in that same vein throughout this race.
Now Kova can run 1,500 metres in 3 minutes and 40 seconds, and I know Vainio would struggle to beat 3:45. Musyoki still there leading the next bunch.
Followed by Mike McLeod, and then Christoph Hurl from West Germany. But that second bunch is really having a separate race here for the bronze medal. Vainio and Kova coming down the home straight. Just 900 metres of the 10,000 metres final left here at the Coliseum in Los Angeles.
And again, look at Vainio. He's really trying, but if you're going to pick a winner, who would you pick? Look how cool Kova is.
He's literally in the box seat at the moment, Alberto Kova, with 700 metres of the race to go.
And Vainio again ran a burner on that lap, 63 seconds. So he's fluctuating from 64, 67, 63.
And recent history is not counting much here either for Martti Vainio, because Kova, in every one of his 10,000 metre races last year, he won them all. 6 starts for 6 wins. And he looks as if he could be in the box seat to continue his unbeaten record here at the Los Angeles Olympic Games. 600 metres of the race to go, as this bunch of 5 runners, 90 metres behind, battle it out for the bronze medal.
Kova looks around and moves up onto the shoulder of Martti Vainio, who's worked so hard in the second half of this race to drop him.
So when is Kova going to make his move? He's just quite content still to sit on the shoulders, the big broad shoulders of Martti Vainio. Now the bell rings for these 2 men. 400 metres to go. And what can Martti Vainio do? He's taking off.
That's what he has to do. If he's going to run hard, he has to run it on this last lap. Kova's still dogging him like a little terrier at his heels of the big man.
But I imagine very soon you'll see the little Italian take off. 300 metres of the race to go.
You can see Vainio trying desperately to pull something else out. Kova looking at that 200-metre mark.
There's the 200-metre mark. Vainio and Kova. And is that the Italian going? Yes, there he is. He's off. 120 metres to go. Goodbye, Martti, he says. Time is run to perfection. 22-year-old Alberto Cobar, world champion in 1973, Olympic champion in 1984. 47.55. That's also a personal best for Cobar. And the battle is on for third place.
It's Mike McLeod from England who's going in there. And Antipo from Italy coming down on the outside.
McLeod looks around. He's got 10 metres to go. They're going to swamp him, are they? Oh, he just gets there. They were closing the gap very fast. But the Englishman, oldest man in the field at 32 years of age, hung on to take the bronze medal. That would be a very special and warm moment for McLeod, because he finished 12th in Moscow. But the crowd standing, giving an ovation to Cobar as the rest of the field comes in well and truly in the wake of Alberto Cobar.
Well, there's the silver medalist, Marty Vagno, who worked so hard, and that seems to be the story of his life.
Yes, one can't help but feel a little sorry for Marty Vagno. He missed the bronze medal by 2 feet at the World Championships last year when there was a fast finish, and he's missed out on the gold at the Olympic Games this year.
This is Shintaku of Japan, who has the best time of 27.44 finishing. He's well below his best, but this man Cobar, the question was about him, could he outkick Mamita? And Mamita, who by the way represented his country Portugal in the 800 and 1500, he didn't have to worry about that because Mamita pulled out of the race.
He never showed an ounce of emotion on his face throughout the entire journey, but there's emotion on his face and on the face of Mike McLeod, whose long career has been rewarded with an Olympic bronze medal. Those citizens of Los Angeles of Italian heritage, and there's hundreds of thousands of them, many of them here in the stadium tonight, absolutely delighted with the performance of their countryman Alberto Cobar.
He's had a wonderful international career. 82 he won the European Championships, and last year he won the World Championships, and now he's won the Olympics. But sad day for Marty Vagno. He'll be pleased, I guess, but he cannot have enough kick to beat this sort of man Cobar.
So that's how it finished. The next heat in the men's 5,000 metres is a bunch of 7, and the first 6 will be assured of a place in the final. The big chair is for the American Steve Lacey, who was a very good 1,500-metre runner back in the early 1980s, moving into second place, sweeping around the home bend with 100 metres to go, and he's running just behind the man who's led for the last 3 or 4 laps, Charles Chariot of Kenya. And the race is really on here. And down the outside comes the Englishman Eamon Martin as well. They're all looking at each other. The back of the field is the Tanzanian Sway and Salvatore Antibó. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them there. Which one missed out, John Davies?
I think Sway missed out. Antibó was looking across all of the time, but this was the man that won, Charles Chariot. And they ran a 2 minutes, 2 second last 800 metres. Really picked it up quickly. But because there were 7 or 8 there right up until that time.
So that's how the third heat in the men's 5,000 metres is finished. There's 1 or 2 still to finish, cross the finish line, including this man, Luis Tipan from Ecuador. But that bunch of 7 who ran together for the whole 12.5 laps and had a little sprint down the home straight. And eventually it was Chariot, the Kenyan, who got there along with Lacey, the American, the leading 2. In fact, he's got more than just the home straight to go. By the look of it, he's got it coming into the home straight now. Is Tipan from Ecuador. So that's how it finished in this heat. There's one, David Moorcroft. We haven't seen him yet. He'll be wearing number 385 and a very familiar face and figure, of course, to everyone in New Zealand. There he is, number 385, David Moorcroft. Alongside of him, number 821 is Zach Barry from Tanzania. Round at the 200-metre mark. That's where they take the gun. 15 starters, 6 assured of a place in the semi-finals. And as we said, the man favoured to win the gold medal in this event with some stiff opposition from Aita, and hopefully John Walker, is David Moorcroft. And I'm sure I speak for all members of the track and field community of New Zealand when I say what a delight it is to see David Moorcroft back running in such good condition. He's been bothered by illness over the past 12 months, and there was a big question mark as to whether he'd even be available to compete at these games, but he's persevered, and he is in very good form, because we saw him on a mile in 3 minutes 50.96 a couple of weeks ago, and he looked absolutely splendid. And he's back to the sort of form which 2 years ago brought him his world record of 13 minutes.
There's Dave Moorcroft right at the back of the field, like John Walker was early on. He's a good 1,500-metre runner, and the English selection method was pretty good this time in that they allowed Dave Moorcroft into the Olympic Games without having to do a qualifying time, which meant he didn't have to panic about his sickness. Being the world record holder, that's one of the favours they give him. They also allowed people like Steve Cram, Seb Coe, Steve Ovett in on the same basis. So he was able to get himself healthy, and the other week he ran an amazing 3 minutes 50 mile in Oslo. So he's back in his best form again.
They've gone through the first 400 metres of this race, and pulling them through is Zach Barry from Tanzania, who finished 14th in the 10,000 metres final earlier in the week. In second place is Omar Aguirre from Chile. As they come down past the start-finish line, and they have 11 laps to go. David Moorcroft right there at the back of the field.
It's Antonio Leitao on the inside, running in third. He's one of the favoured runners, has 13:24 as best time. He should get through this round okay.
In fourth place at the moment is Roger Soler from Peru. He has a best time this year of 14 minutes and 13 seconds. Coming to the 800-metre mark.
So 2:15 through 800 metres, running 67-second laps. That's about 14-minute pace. And many runners back in New Zealand would like to be in a race in the Olympics with that sort of pace, because we do have people that can handle it, but unfortunately they can't handle the 13:30s that these guys can run. So one of the hard things about qualifying in an event like the 5,000 metres is being able to hand changes of pace, because although they may run in a leisurely fashion early on, it gets fast and then everybody slows down again as they get towards the end, if they've cleared out the 6 through to the next round.
The Tanzanian Barry leading from Aguirre of Chile. In third place is Leitao from Portugal. And in fourth place is Roger Soler from Peru. And also up there, having joined them, is Antonio Savaggio, whose twin brother ran in one of the earlier heats.
This twin, though, is the better twin at the moment. 13:25 is his best time. .68 seconds for that lap, so it's slowed down, if anything, and that's not good for Zach Barry. He's really been well known here in America as a road runner. Goes to university in the States with his teammate Shahanga. And if you remember, he was the man that ran such a good 10,000 metres at the Commonwealth Games, but it apparently gave it to his elder statesman Shahanga to win. So Barry took the silver medal, I'm sorry. Dave Moorcroft, third from the back of this bunch at the moment, and like John Walker, just tracking around, not worried about anything, but keeping in contact, keeping an eye on everybody, not wasting energy, not running too far.
So everything going along in rather ordered, tranquil fashion at the moment as Barry continues to carry the field through. They now have 8.5 laps to go. And this is the first round of the men's 5,000 metres, the fourth and final heat. And we just have received the official time for John Walker, who ran 13:44.75 in his heat, which was heat 2. He finished in second place behind Mats Eriksson, and of course is comfortably through, as we expected, to the next round, the semi-finals.
And the pace about 14:15 pace at the moment. Zach Barry not really pushing it along hard. I think he's picked it up a little bit now because the bunch is strung out.
But just at the moment, Dave, it's been fairly quiet up till now, and it's still much the same situation that we had when we left you, with Zach Barry still leading from the Portuguese run-up. Leitao, and third place is Aguirre from Chile, followed by the Kenyan Kipchoge. As they cross the start-finish line there's 1,200 metres of the race to go. David Moorcroft, just like we saw with John Walker in his heat, has stayed at the back and now has moved up into about the middle of the field. In fact, he's in 6th place. If you go through the field, there he is in the white colours of Great Britain. Coming down the back straight with about 1,000 metres. So they've completed 80% of the journey. And this is the fourth and final heat. The first 6 go through to the semi-final, along with the 6 next fastest overall. And that's number 580, sweeping right round the main bunch to take over the lead, Paul Kipchoge from Kenya.
And the pace still running 67 seconds, so it's well over 14-minute time at the moment. And now the runners that are getting edgy about being out-sprinted are starting to pick the pace up. So again, a bunch of 8 runners still together with 2 laps to go. And that's Zach Barry jogging along behind Paul Kipchoge of Kenya.
So Leitao settles into 3rd place. David Moorcroft now there in 5th place, running behind the Chilean runner Omar Aguirre.
Kipchoge looking around then, trying to count how many he's still towing along, and he's still towing along too many. And a 64.8 second lap that time, so nothing really startling.
So they've completed 11 full laps of the journey, going around the top bend into the home straight.
Dave Moorcroft, you can see just pushing Barry out a little bit so he can get a nice run in on the pole line.
So again, we have a situation which will be fascinating with 7, and include the runner at the back there, 8 in this bunch, as the Chilean sweeps around. And Barry goes back out into the front again. 7, 8 in this leading bunch, and 6 will be assured of a place in the next round, the semi-finals. And now it's the Portuguese runner, 24-year-old Antonio Leitao. He's a best time of 13 minutes and 14 seconds, which he set in 1983, so he should be able to comfortably handle this pace. There goes Moorcroft, just making sure he steers clear of the pack. He's got a safe, clear run home. And number 633, Eduardo Castro from Mexico, has moved in there as well. And he's moved into 2nd place. Moorcroft in 3rd place. Kipchoge 4th.
And Antti Loikkanen from Finland made a big run. He wasn't really on the bunch, but look at him coming around the outside, number 260.
And as they all go through the strange little ritual of throwing their heads around, craning their necks, just looking at each other, eyeing each other like suspicious enemies. And there is a bit of a sweep here at the line, and going into it was 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8 of them. And 13:51.20 was the winning time. Number 722, Antonio Leitao, takes the 4th and final heat in the 5,000 metres.
And an absolutely crazy way to finish in a heat like that, with people lining up in the track in front of you. You want to make sure you're on the outside of them. Some of the runners didn't do that. So just have a look, as Brendan said, everybody craning their necks to see what's going on here. And Antti Loikkanen, who came from nowhere now, gets right in amongst all of these people. And some of the guys that are drifting around the back, sprinting in, whilst the leaders, Leitao, look at him, just sitting around there, looking around. Dave Moorcroft, he's got clear running, but watch these 2 flashing down the outside. And Kipchoge might miss out and have to rely upon being a fastest time qualifier for the semi-finals.
So Antonio Leitao wins the 4th and final heat in the 5,000 metres, and that's the tale of the 5,000 forces in recent years. And we haven't yet seen Diane Rogers. She is out there on the start line. The camera hopefully will catch her before the start. There are 9 starters in this race. Aurora Cunha from Portugal, number 300. And the first 3 go through to the final, and the fastest 3 losers. There you can see Diane Roger, who was standing on the lane mark between lane 1 and lane 2, over at the 200-metre mark where this race will begin. And she's drawn a pretty tough heat, John Davies.
Yes, she's got some tough people in here. Jane Furness, Agnes Possamai, and this lady, Mary Decker. The lady next to Decker in the blue, number 232, she's a danger as well. But Diane's been training really hard. And there's Jane Furness.
These women creating a little bit of history. This is the first time a 3,000-metre race has been held at the Olympic Games, and this is the longest distance women have ever travelled at the Olympic Games on a track. 3,000 metres, in fact double the previous longest distance that women could run in a track event, 1,500 metres. The Canadian Lynn Williams down on the inside.
alongside of her, Diane Rodger. And the gun for the start, and quickly into the lead goes Mary Decath as Diane Rodger settles at the back of the field. It's now very windy and rather cold here at the Coliseum. In fact, it is so cold that both John Davies and I, for the first time in a week, have had to put a jersey on. Temperature has dropped appreciably. There's a lot of cloud hovering above the stadium, so these are very good conditions compared to the searing heat that most of the athletes have had to prevail with during their competitions. Coming down to the home straight, and when they pass the start-finish line, they'll have 7 laps to go.
As John Walker said, that the conditions today were the hottest he'd ever run in, and he reckoned he had lost several pounds in weight just through dehydration. Diane Rodger doesn't need to be that impatient at the moment. She needs to do what John Walker did, just sit in and be comfortable for a moment, not run wide on the track, tuck herself in on the pole line. But Mary Decath always keen to be a front runner. Perhaps she learned something from Jim Ryan, who ran a tactical race, and when someone fell, he got tripped in the Olympic Games and never got up to getting contention for a medal. 67 seconds for the first lap. Very quick.
Mary Decath leading from Portomai from Italy, and third place down there on the inside is the Canadian Lynn Williams, and Jane Furness from Great Britain in fourth place. Behind her, number 300, is Aurora Cunha from Portugal, all grouped together as they come down the home straight for the second time. And the lone figure at the back there, just at the top of your picture, was the Jordan athlete in this field, Raida Abdullah, who's quickly been dropped off. And the Kenyan there as well, Helene Kamaya, just 16 years of age, the youngest competitor on the 3,000 metres. 6 laps to go. Decath, Portomai up, Furness, Williams, Cunha up. And there we see Royshan Smythe from Ireland and Diane Rodger completing the field. Irish woman in the green, just to your right of your picture, and behind her this little 16-year-old from Kenya, Helen Kamaya, who's never broken 9 minutes for the distance.
And a 70-second second lap, so Mary Decath slowed the pace down a little bit, and I'm sure that Diane Rodger will welcome that, because 67 seconds is really solid pace, but she's doing the right thing, just hanging in the back there at the moment. Now, the people that are tough in this heat are the 3 leaders at the moment, Decath, Portomai and Furness. Here comes Helen Kamayo again from Kenya. And you can see she's only young, how inexperienced she is by running so wide on the track.
1,000 metres have been completed, 2,000 are left, and this the first heat of 3 in the women's 3,000 metres. Now, 5 of this field have personal bests faster than Diane Rodger. She must endeavour to finish in the first 3 to be sure of a place in the final. Then the next 3 fastest losers from the heats will also get through. They roll down the back straight with 4.5 laps of the race to go. It's interesting looking at number 232 and 261. As we said, Helen Kamayo is 16 years of age. Now, the woman running in second place is just a few months away from her 32nd birthday, twice the age of the youngest competitor in the field.
So easing off again to 74 seconds that lap, which is they're on about 8:50 pace at the moment, which is faster than Diane has ever run in her life, but she's looking quite comfortable in there at the moment.
She competed over this distance of 3,000 metres a couple of weeks ago in a pre-games meet here in Los Angeles, and ran very close to her personal best of 8 minutes and 53 seconds. So she's very much at the peak of her form at the moment, but she'll have to go faster than that, certainly if she wants to make the final.
She also broke Anne Ordain's 1,500-metre record. Anne Ordain set the record in 1976 at the Olympic Games. Diane broke that the other day in one of the warm-up meets by just a couple of tenths of a second. So she's in good shape, in excellent form. All she has to do here now is concentrate, hang on to those front 3.
The Kenyan woman has been dropped. As Mary Decath goes through the 200-metre mark to complete 4 laps in 1,600 metres. 1,400 metres of the race left.
And that lap again a little quicker, 71 seconds. Diane doing everything right at the moment. On the pole, tucked in behind the bunch, sheltering. Jane Furness is doing the silly thing, number 156, running wide all the time. Whenever she runs outside that first lane, she's running 8 meters further than Diane Roger. If she runs it for the whole lap, that is. But Kamayo from Kenya trying to hang on to the back there.
In fact, the 5 women who are in front of Diane Roger now are the 5 in this race who have personal bests quicker than her. So she's doing the right thing, staying with the runners that have the form and have the times in this race. And she'll have to nail at least 2 of them to make sure of a place in the next round, in fact, which will now be the final. The job was made a little easier here by decision to drop the first round in these 3,000 meters and reduce it as to a straight semi-final and a final. But it's going to be cutthroat. 2 laps and 200 meters to go. Mary Decker, you saw her right from the gun, straight to the lead, and that's where she stayed there. And that's how she likes to race.
But the pace is still about 8:50 pace. They went through 2,000 meters in 5 minutes 54 seconds.
Number 218, the 19-year-old Irish woman in the field, Roisin Smythe, is also having difficulty staying with this front bunch. This is the Irish cross-country champion. Has a best time of 8:57, so she too is finding this pace just a little beyond her at the moment. They've got 2 laps to go. But Mary Decker looks to be doing it comfortably. She has a best time of 8:29, which is not surprising that she's doing this easily. And Diane Roger hanging on to this front bunch. They're in 6th place at the moment. As they go down the back straight with 1 lap and 300 meters of the race to go.
And Diane's doing everything correctly at the moment, still hanging in there.
Very experienced runner in international competition, even if she doesn't have many bouquets and accolades to show for it. She finished 4th in this event at Brisbane in 1982, ran at the 1976 Olympic Games in Montreal in the 1,500 meters, and is now back here at the Olympic Games 8 years later, running the 3,000.
So the crunch is going to come as they come up to get the bell. Diane Roger in there with 6 runners. 3 of them go through automatically, the first 3, and she's getting into a little trouble as the Portuguese lady, Cunha, comes out.
So now they're all starting to do their calculations, and they're all starting to get close to Mary Decker, and this is the critical stage in the race for Diane Roger. She's got to stay with them. 300 meters to go.
Now it looks like it could get 2 bunches. Diane needs to get up out in front of Aurora Cunha.
Mary Decker just coasting along with 300 meters of the race to go, and Diane Roger has been dropped off that bunch of 3 as they lift the pace. Decker looking round again.
Diane Roger in 4th place, though. She needs to work hard now to try and make sure she gets a good time.
These look like the 3 that will go through to the final. On positions anyway. Mary Decker, Lynn Williams, and then Agnesi Paramai. And Roger has been dropped back into 5th place. She's finding the pace just a little too hot over the last 400 as Decker comfortably comes down to the tape, just coasting over the last 50 meters. And that's a smart time anyway, 8:44. 2nd place Williams, 3rd place to Paramai, and I think Diane Roger may have finished in 5th or even 6th place.
Yes, but an excellent time by Diane Roger. She's run 8:47.6 by my reckoning, which is a personal best, and just over 2 seconds outside of Anne Ordain's New Zealand record. So an excellent run by Diane Roger. She could get in as a fastest qualifier.
Mary Decker wins it in 8:44, but kudos too for Diane Roger. She still could get through to the final as one of the fastest losers. Figure very familiar to New Zealanders out there near the front of the field, Bridget Krause, who ran in New Zealand across last summer. In fact, has had a couple of visits to New Zealand, performed with notable distinction on the road and on the track last summer in New Zealand, and she was 2nd, of course, in this 3,000-metre final at the World Championships, and she's there in 2nd place. Just in front of her is Wendy Sly from Great Britain. In 3rd place down on the inside, the small figure in the red, the US colours of Joan Hansen. And the tall woman you can see out to the left, number 013, is a teenager from Australia by the name of Donna Gould. They have 3.5 laps to go, and it's a pretty gentle, slow pace that has been set in this race, and that, John Davies, of course, is playing right into the hands of Diane Rodger.
Yes, well into the hands of Diane. They are currently 12 seconds behind the pace of Diane Rodger's heat, which is really good for her, because although she didn't finish in the top 3, she was 5th. She ran a very fast time, and I don't think any of the people running behind the first 3 qualifiers in this heat will beat that time.
So they have 3 laps to go in this second heat of the women's 3,000 metres. As we mentioned before, the first time in the modern era of the Olympic Games, which now stretch for 88 years, that women have been allowed to run 3,000 metres.
And Wendy Sly and Brigitte Kraus dominating the race at the moment. And the significant thing about the two of them is that they are probably the fastest runners in this race also. They both run very good 1,500 metre times, and the rest of the field would not match them. So it's the rest of the women that need to get out and do the work. So they don't really care how slow it is, because they believe they can out-sprint everybody else in the field. That's the 2 leaders.
Wendy Sly, Brigitte Kraus. On the inside is Maria Machado from Portugal. Running alongside of her on his shoulder is Joan Henson from the USA. He ran a very smart time of 8:41 here in the US trials on this track in June of this year, and finished in the top 3 to make the American team for the 3,000 metres. Eva Ernström from Sweden is presently there in 5th place, just ahead of Deborah Gould of Australia. Number 114 at the back of this leading bunch is Annette Sergent from France. So they now have 2 laps to go, just under 800 metres left in this second heat of the women's 3,000 metres. The first 3 assured of a place in the final, and then the next 3 fastest losers, as it were, from the 3 heats will make up the field for the final of this event. Wendy Sly, who has very special reasons to feel happy in this part of the world, because it was here in Southern California last year that she became the world 10K road champion. New Zealanders may better remember her as Wendy Smith, the woman that had that classic duel with Anne Ordain at the track at Brisbane in 1982. Was edged out by the New Zealander for the gold medal. Since then is married an English athlete, Chris Sly, and now goes by her married name of Wendy Sly.
And you can see Donna Gould out the back there, starting to struggle. She's not running as tidily as she was earlier on. So the pace 67 seconds that time, and that's why Donna Gould is finding it tough at the moment. 1 lap to go.
And with 400 metres to go, they've been running for 7 minutes and 55 seconds, and it's still the same story out in front. Sly and Kraus, and there goes Henson with them. The 3 fastest women in this field, all assured of a place in the final, as long as they hold their form comfortably for the next 300 metres. Kraus decides to do a little extra work. Sly is not impressed. Hansen staying there with them as well. They all just want to remain in contact and make sure that no one else gets anywhere near them. And Kraus is doing that very well with just over 100 metres to go. Sly looks around and sees there's a lot of daylight between the woman behind her in 3rd place, Hansen, and the next runner. So now they can ease off. They're all through to the final. But we'll watch the times very closely of those that come in 4th, 5th and 6th to see where Diane Rodger stands.
Well, none of them are going to beat it, because Brigitte Kraus has gone through in a time that was slower than Diane Rodger's.
You can see the elapsed time of these runners in the middle of the field, well over 9 minutes. There's Brigitte Kraus, wins it in 8:57.53 and takes her place now in the final. And so at this stage, Diane Rodger has reason to be optimistic, but there's still 1 heat left as the back runners in the field come down the home straight. So that's the situation. In the 3,000 metres, we've had 2 of the 3 heats. Remember, if you missed the first one, Diane Rodger running here at the Olympic Games in bare feet. Zola Button, what an awesome moment this must be for this tiny, frail, 18-year-old South African, now living and running for Great Britain. as they go through the 800-metre mark here in this, the third and final heat of the women's 3,000 metres. And Budd, who took over the role of pacemaker right from the gun, and in her track, number 316, running in second place at the moment, is Marikica Puica from Romania, who in fact at 34 years of age is nearly double the lifespan of Zola Budd. In third place, down on the inside, is Cindy Bremser of the USA, followed by Monica Reganisi from Chile, and the Irish runner in green there is Monica Joyce, who's running in fifth place.
And so the first kilometre has come up, and 2:59, so just under 9-minute pace. Remember, Diane Rodger ran 8:47.9. That's her official time. And if she can beat the third, the fourth, fifth and sixth runners on time here, she will get into the final.
John Davies and I were just talking before this race started when the last time an athlete appeared in bare feet. And about the only obvious one we can think of is the great Ethiopian marathon runner of the 60s, Abibi Bakila.
And Zola Budd has picked up the pace. That's a 72nd lap that time. And you can see she's just stringing the rest of the field out. And Cornelia Berkey from Switzerland on the inside there in the red singlets, running in fifth place at the moment. She's drifting back a little bit, so two of the faster runners come around the outside of her. Cindy Bremser.
Budd, who doesn't appear in any way to be overawed or intimidated by this moment. It's remarkable to think just 6 months ago at the beginning of the year, a relatively obscure schoolgirl running across the barren felts of the Orange Free State. But since then, I suppose you could say she's lived her life in the vortex of a media hurricane, and it's resulted in her getting largely here to the Olympic Games and being able to run for Great Britain. And even since she's been here, although she's attracted little attention from the American media, she has been the centre of a controversy. She was threatened with disqualification from the 3,000 metres if she continued to send back a daily diary to a newspaper in Great Britain. So she's elected not to do that, but the problem is that other members of the Great British team are doing it, and they apparently haven't been threatened with the same disqualification. So that's the situation at the moment in the 3,000 metres with just over 3 laps to go. It's Zola Budd from Great. They go through the 200-metre mark where they started the race 7 minutes and 6 seconds ago. Zola Budd running right on her shoulder, number 363, the American Cindy Bremser. In third place is Puica from Romania, and there in fourth place, number 324, is Cornelia Berkey. So one of these four won't go through to the final on placings, but it's a pretty smart time, and that's not the sort of news I imagine, John Davies, that Diane Rodger wants to hear.
No, it isn't, but it's the fifth place in this race, which is important to Diane. She can afford to allow one person to go through from here, but not two. Two of them, that's fourth and fifth, both of them cannot have a faster time than Diane.
So the bell lap on the final semi-final of the women's 3,000 metres. And it's still Zola Budd who's led from the start of this race. The American Bremser on her shoulder, Puica and Berkey. And these three leading runners wanting to make sure that they can drop that fourth runner, Berkey. Zola Budd, tiny little figure, just 42 kilograms, running in bare feet with 300 metres of this heat to go. Puica from Romania. Budd staying with her. Bremser there as well. Through the 200-metre mark they go.
And 68 seconds for that last lap, but Puica opening it up now. She's one of the tops in the world, has a best 8:33.5.
She's the fastest performer over 3,000 metres here at the Olympic Games this year of those competitors that are here, and she's showing us some of her form now as she comes down with about 30 metres of the race to go. Bremser is through, so is Budd. Puica, Bremser, Budd, and fourth place going to Berkey. And I think that could be good news for Diane Rodger as the fifth place getter just goes across the line now in 8 minutes and 56 seconds. John Davies been quickly doing his arithmetic.
8:54 I got Monica Joyce at, so she's going to miss out on the final. It looks like we'll have a finalist in the women's 3,000.
Through their first round performances. They've assembled at a point about 80 metres from the start-finish line down the home straight. And when they pass that start-finish line, they will have 7 laps to go.
On your mark.
28 hurdles and 7 water jumps. Tough event. Included in this particular heat, number 919 will be Henry Marsh, who will Americans from the United States and the favourite for the gold medal. And they're on the journey now, less than 6 laps to go.
Greg Duheim in second place there, Canadian. Has a best time of 8:25. And that's Philippos Philippou from Cyprus out in the lead at the moment.
And we're a little surprised to find, and we can't see him anywhere, Henry Marsh has not taken his place in the semi-final. You can't see an American uniform there at all. He was scheduled to take his place.
And that's him running in red tonight at the very back of the field. He's changed from grey, which they appear to wear in the daytime, to the nighttime strip of red.
These American uniforms, they take a lot of keeping up with. The black sprinters all wear red, but virtually every other American wears grey. Just to confuse us, Henry Marsh, as John Davies said, for the first time we see an athlete appearing in a red uniform outside of the sprints. So we can breathe again.
That's Franco Boffi from Italy gone into the lead now. These men all very keen to keep up a good pace. The first 5 go through to the final.
Franco Boffi from Italy. Behind him is Greg Duheim, who ran at the Commonwealth Games in Brisbane in 1982. He was in New Zealand last summer, coming to the water jump for the second time. The hurdles in steeplechase have a 5 inches thick, or about 12 centimetres, and so they are able, if their technique is not good enough, to in fact step over it. But you will find at this level, except for the water jump, all these leading steeplechasers in the world are technically sound enough to clear them. 5 laps to go in this first heat.
So they're running about 8:20 pace at the moment, which is a good clip for a lot of these guys. And Henry Marsh, the American, right out the back of the field. That's where he was in his first round run. You can see he's a good hurdler, jogging up onto the back of the bunch, making up distance there, but apparently he's been suffering from some mild illness and doesn't feel well at all. He only just qualified in his first round heat.
So it's Boffi, De Backer and Duheim, the leading 3, as they go over the water jump for the 3rd time. And you can see Henry Marsh at the back of the field. He's in fact moved into second to last place through that water jump, coming down the home straight, and they'll have 4 laps to go.
In a 72-second lap that time, they slow down a little bit.
Quite a different atmosphere here in the evening, with the hot sun gone and the bright lights creating a sense of artificial daylight here at the Coliseum. And it's probably a better atmosphere, I suppose, because the black sky here almost acts like a roof, and one gets more of an enclosed feeling here in the Coliseum at night with the racing. And the crowd seem to be closer to the action.
And Greg Duheim doing the good thing, getting up, getting a good view of the hurdles. Just look how he attacks them. He's a good hurdler, quick over them.
Duheim, he's had a busy day here at the Coliseum because he also ran in the 5,000 metre heats. Leading the field over the water jump with just over 3 laps to go. Marsh leading from De Backer. Green figure of Liam O'Brien from Ireland, there in 3rd place.
In a 72-second lap again, about 8:25 pace. So Liam O'Brien decides it's his time to have a go, and you can see Greg Duheim just drifting off a little bit from those 2 leaders.
Henry Marsh still there, the back of that main bunch, as it were, or in second to last place. He must finish in the first 5. That should not be beyond him, even if he is a little under the weather. He was primarily concerned with the pace that was set in his first heat. Believed that they went out too fast, and he wasn't going to have any part of it, and just made sure he finished in the first 6th. He, in fact, finished 6th to make it through to this round. But there must be something of a question mark hanging over him because of this illness that he's had recently.
Yes, he was ranked number 1 in the world last year.
2 kilometers, the leader is Decath.
He was also ranked number 1 in the world in 1980. He was going off to Moscow, hopefully to win the gold medal for the United States. And, of course, didn't have that opportunity, but has persevered for 4 years. Had dreadful luck at the World Championships in Helsinki last year when he was challenging for the lead, coming into the last water jump when he fell. So he has a checkered career in the major meets, but he has his chance here for a gold medal. Now he's starting to move up a little and tag onto the tail of that leading cluster of runners, with now just over 2 laps, or just under 2 laps of the race to go. Marsh has moved into 7th place, just clearing the hurdle now. In front of him is Greg Duheim. 700 metres left.
Marsh is a very aggressive runner, and he's just keeping in contact with his runners. If he's got any of his old fire there, he'll be very solid in the last lap.
It's Tommy Ekblom from Finland. Leading from Domingo Ramon from Spain. Decath from France. Kariuka from Kenya. And also joining that bunch now is Henry Marsh. They come down the home straight with just over 1 lap to go. This is the first semi-final of the men's 3,000-metre steeplechase. The first 5 all assured of a place in the final. And Henry Marsh now moving into 4th place, just making sure he gets in that first 5. Ekblom, Decath, Ramon, and then Marsh, the leading runners, into the last lap of the first semi-final.
And Kariuka from Kenya on the back of that leading bunch was the man that beat Peter Renner in his heat. One of those leading runners almost tripped on the top of that hurdle that time. The pace really on now.
There's 6 in that leading bunch of the picture you can see at the moment. And the first 5 are assured of a place in the final, remember. 200 metres of the race to go now. Ekblom, Decath, Ramon, and Henry Marsh as they come to the water jump for the last time. Spectacular shot. And the leading runners all through. That's Roger Hackney of Britain, followed by the Kenyan, Kariuka.
Well, Hackney made a real hash of that water jump, but he's fighting on now.
Henry Marsh looks around his shoulder to see where the next runner is. He's in 4th place, and he will make sure that no one sweeps by him over the last 50 metres, checking every couple of strides. Meanwhile, Ramon goes through to win it. Decath and Henry Marsh going across there in 3rd place. And so the favourite for the gold medal is through to the final. This was the man that won it, number 2-3. Betty Bakouche from Tunisia.
Come up.
Number 391. Colin Wrights from Great Britain. Another one of the favoured runners in this event. But they've broken and told to regroup.
I think somebody actually had their foot on the line or something, and they've asked them to stand up. And the marksman is making quite sure everybody understands where they are. Peter Renner working up himself there, looking very determined.
On your mark.
2 Americans in this field, Brian Diemer and John Gregoric. And the second semi-final in the men's 3,000-metre steeplechase is underway. The first 5 all go through to the final. They will join the first 5 finishers from the first semi-final, and the 2 remaining places will go to the 2 fastest losers. And the tall, loping figure of Peter Renner there at the right of your picture, in about 7th position at the moment, down on there on the inside.
And out in the front is the American Brian Diemer, who won his heat yesterday has a good time, 8:17, and Colin Ritz from England, the other tall man, running beside him.
Third place, number 294, small figure there is Joseph Mahmoud from France. Come to the water jump for the first time. They're all over it safely. Demar takes him through the first lap with Colin Wright's slightly hunched figure, another who ran in New Zealand across our last summer in the track series. And he's Britain's top medal chance in this race with 6 laps to go. Third in the World Championships last year in Helsinki, and he's leading the field at the moment is the Englishman Ritz.
Peter Renner in a good spot right up there with 2 of the toughies he has to beat. Loping along very comfortably. The first lap, 70 seconds. That's approximately 8:20 pace, so he's on about what he ran yesterday. Sorry, the day before yesterday. Colin Ritz bowls along out in the lead there. You can see them all spreading out to get a good look at the hurdle so they don't trip each other up.
The Kenyan, there you can see him in the red and white in the race is Julius Correa, who was the heat winner yesterday. Number 444, last over the water jump for the second time is Hans Kuhleman from Holland. Peter Renner decides to go to the front of the field and join the Englishman Ritz.
Well, Peter has to take up the pace to some extent and make sure that it's honest all the way, because he doesn't have a great sprint. For instance, Colin Ritz on the inside of him is a sub-4-minute miler. And Peter doesn't want to sit around and let those sorts of people burn him off at the end.
So they've completed a third of the distance, 1,000 metres, 1 kilometre, 2 kilometres left. And Peter Renner of New Zealand leading from Colin Ritz. Third place is Correa. As Mahmoud of France moves into 4th place.
2:24 pace at the moment. Peter Renner in the lead. This is what he needs to do. Push it along, keep the pace going.
24-year-old forest worker from Canterbury clears the water for the 3rd time. A spectacular presence here of the spotlight, the Olympic flame, providing quite a majestic backdrop to this race at the moment.
And a 68-second lap that time. That's why everybody's strung out. Peter Renner really pushing it along.
So he's not intimidated by anyone. He's got his own game plan, and he's putting it into operation early in the race, and he's going to stick to it. The thing we liked about Renner after his first round, he was so positive about the final. He makes no excuses. He said straight out that the Poles aren't here, one of the great nations in the 3,000-metre steeplechase. The Russians aren't here as well. Patrick Eel from West Germany, one of the favourites, along with Marsh, isn't here. So he said, there's no excuses. I should make the final with all these people absent. In a very positive frame of mind, and that's reflected in his racing here in the first half of this race. And Colin Ritz from England just sitting on him. And there in 3rd place still is Julius Correa of Kenya. He has a personal best of 8:20.
Renner taking the water jump beautifully, just touching it with his landing foot, but he's got a tough race here. Ritz, Correa, Mahmoud, all ranked in the top 10 in the world last year.
Three laps left, and this is the second semi-final of the 3,000-metre steeplechase. And it's the New Zealander Peter Renner leading from the Englishman Ritz, Correa in 3rd place, Mahmoud in 4th, Brian Deemer from the United States in 5th place. The first 5 will all be through to the final.
So a good attacking run that time by Peter Renner. You could just see him pick up his stride a little bit. He doesn't falter around. None of them do. They're all very, very good hurdlers. So Renner now to attack the water jump.
At 2 kilometers, the leader
You see him
is
pick
Renner.
up his pace and lead into it. Very good running. He doesn't look under stress at the moment, but it's getting tired for him now. He has to keep the pace up, keep going. keep lifting himself.
We're getting to the business end of the race. 2 laps to go, and they pass the start-finish line here. And Peter Renner still out in front.
And he's running 69-second laps at the moment. And you can see the gap starting to open up. Can Peter Renner keep this pace going?
Now less than 2 laps to go. Before this race started, 7 men in this heat of Peter Renner's had personal best times faster than him. So that's why he had to go out there and take this aggressive attitude towards the race. He's got to finish in the first 5. 7 of these men have gone faster than him.
And the gap's opening up, you can see. Some of them starting to suffer. Peter Renner, if he can keep this up, he will be in that first 5 group. That's where he needs to be.
And maybe that New Zealand record of Ewan Robertson's of 8:21 will be under threat as well. So he's got plenty to run for over the last lap and a couple of 100 metres. Peter Renner coming to the water jump for the second to last time.
And he attacks it really nicely again and floats out through that water. Looking good, Peter Renner.
Down the home straight they come, past the point on the track where they started the race nearly 7 minutes ago. And Renner loping along, looking in control, looking relaxed. He's got 1 lap to go. A bell for Peter Renner of New Zealand. And Ritz, as he has for most of the race, just content to sit on his shoulder, just takes a check to see where the other runners in the field relate to him at the moment. And those first 5 may have tied up those 5 positions for the final. Still 3/4 of a lap to go.
And you can see Renner again attack that hurdle. And look how he's opened up the bunch. They're looking around. They realise the rest of the other 4, they don't have to run fast because they've got about a 15-metre gap.
He's only 24 years of age, but he's run this semi-final like a cunning old veteran. He called the tune. Coming to the water jump for the last time. So let's keep an eye on that clock and see if he can get under Ewan Robertson's time of 8:21.
And you can see Renner's foot slip a little bit as he took that hurdle. He's getting tired now, but an exceptional run by him.
Correa from Kenya goes over the hurdle, the last hurdle in first place, but Renner doesn't need to worry. He's safely through to the final. A few are coming with sprints, but they won't catch Renner. Renner goes across from second place, and yes, he's easily broken Ewan Robertson's record, which has stood since the 1976 Olympic Games. We've unofficially clocked him at about 8:18.
8:18 for Peter Renner. He's qualified for the final, and he's made a New Zealand record, justifying his selection here. The bushman from Christchurch really does a good one tonight for New Zealand. Just look at him slip slightly on this hurdle, but it was no trouble for him. He took away that other bunch of 4 runners. So Renner coming down the home straight, not having to worry too much. Colin Ritz, Mahmood looking around. Where is the 6th runner in the field? They're not concerned. No concern for Renner at all. An outstanding run here by Peter Renner tonight. And if he can run that well again in the final, he will be something for everybody to watch. Peter Renner qualifies in 2nd place.
So about 8:18 unofficially for Peter Renner, well under the New Zealand record of Ewan Robertson's, which has stood since the 1976 Olympic Games. He's got a day to recover from his 2 appearances here in the steeplechase. He's lowered his personal best each time, but I'm just wondering, John Davies, how much will he have left for the final?
He has a day's rest, and that's what he was counting on. He said, I can afford to be aggressive because I have a day's rest between each event, and I can come up for the next one. We look forward to him coming up for the next one.
He's a talented runner, and he ran the race of his life tonight against 7 men who were all faster than him, but he came home in 2nd place, a New Zealand record, a personal best obviously as well, but above all, final along with the first 3 from the next semi-final, then the 2 best performances. And a good start made there by Kathy Cook, way up to the left of the picture, running in lane number 8. Although she's the Commonwealth record holder at 49.43. She hasn't been in that sort of form so far this season, with the best time of 53.14. But she's running well here as they come to the 200 metres. Coming through on the inside, Helen Barnett running well, as is the Australian Marie Chapman in lane number 4. Through the 200-metre market, it's still Catherine Cook, the 26-year-old Englishwoman who has won a whole heap of medals at the Commonwealth and Olympic Games over the years, and has moved up to the 400 metres in recent years. It was 3rd in this event at the Los Angeles Olympics. She knows she only must finish in the first 3 as she comes into the home straight, and there's an interesting battle going on for 3rd place at the moment. And coming through in lane number 5 is Charmaine Crooks, the Canadian, a finalist at the Olympic Games in 1984. She's doing it pretty easily as well. Crooks comes down Kathy Cook finishes in second place, and third place going to Marie Chapman of Australia. So Crooks, Cook and Chapman all assured of a place in the women's 400 metres final. An official time of 53.40 for the 400 metres. Number 154, the 25-year-old Jamaican-born Canadian Charmaine Crooks. 7th, as we said, at the 1984 Olympic Games, and 7th in this event at the last Commonwealth Games, and now through to the final again in 1986. We're looking at Marita Payne, one of the favourites for the gold medal in the women's 400 metres, going down into her blocks for this second semi-final. She's running in lane number 5. Another favourite for the gold medal is Debbie Flintoff, the fastest in the Commonwealth last year, over the 400 metres flat. And lane number 7 is Angela Pickford, a 22-year-old Englishwoman, current UK champion. And lane number 8 is Marina Buda from Vanuatu. The other runners in the field, and lane number 2 is Gillian Richardson, and from Canada, Sharon Stewart from Australia in 3, and Dawn Kitchen from Scotland in 4. Remember, the first 3 to qualify automatically, and the 2 fastest losers from the 2 semi-finals. And charging out at a pretty strong pace is Debbie Flintoff from Australia as they hit the 200-metre mark. And it's Debbie Flintoff who leads this field, and second place at the moment is Marita Payne. Remember, the favourites only must finish in the first 3, so they won't be expending all their energy in the semi-final as they come through the headwind, heading towards the home straight with just over 100 metres of this second semi-final to go. Debbie Flintoff, Marita Payne at the head of the field, Gillian Richardson from Canada running well down on the inside, Sharon Stewart of Australia there in 4th place at the moment. So there's a line-up across the track: Richardson, Stewart, Payne and Flintoff, but it's Richardson and Flintoff, and eventually Flintoff, that goes into the tape first, Richardson second, Marita Payne third. So those 3 are assured of a place in the final, and 4th place going to Sharon Stewart of Australia. Debbie Flintoff, the world's leading 400-metre hurdlist in 1986, looking for the double in the 400-metre flat and the 400-metre hurdles here at the Commonwealth Games, safely through to the final, the 400-metre flat.
And that was quite a quick run, actually. A time of 52.92 would be the official time for Flintoff in that race. But Mary Kapalou from Vanuatu got the worst straw that she could imagine coming into the semi-final in the outside lane, and she's already being eaten up by the runners on the inside, Angela Pickford of England and Debbie Flintoff from Australia. And it's Flintoff who has the best time in the Commonwealth this year of 50.78, and there you can see her charging now into what one could call the lead of this field at the moment. And there's quite a tactical battle going on the runners on her inside that you can see tailing out to the right-hand side of the picture. Gillian Richardson of Canada going through quite leisurely through the 200 metres, and outside her Sharon Stewart of Australia. And Stewart from Australia in the second lane, just in the picture there now, is really making a bid to try and make sure of her place in the final as she comes round the bend, and inside her Gillian Richardson also making a dab and making sure she keeps in contact. But outside, it's all Debbie Flintoff of Australia. An ex-Commonwealth Games hurdles champion over 400 metres, so we know she's got plenty of strength, probably not an awful lot of speed. And down inside of her, Gillian Richardson, a fast runner, and also Marita Payne of Canada, another excellent sprinter. They're the people she's got to have to watch in the final if she wants to win a gold.
First, Debbie Flintoff of Australia, 52.9.
So first was Flintoff in that heat, second was Gillian Richardson.
Performance and points from Pete, in the hope that he will be reinstated and have his points reinstated, because he presently is lying in second position if his points from the 400 metres continue to count. He will run in lane number 6. The other contenders are 3 Australians. In lane 2, Simon Shirley, Stuart Andrew. In 3, Peter Fossey. In 4, Michael Smith, who's lying in 4th place. From Canada in lane 5, Jukes and Arthur Oddie from the Isle of Man. And away first time, and a good start by the 3 Australians. Jukes also got away to a good start, as did the Canadian Michael Smith. But coming through, it's Stuart Andrews in lane number 2. But now Jukes, although he's starting to clip some of these hurdles, his big long legs are carrying him to victory. So Jukes first, Michael Smith second, and then the 3 Australians. 15.20, the official winning time for Eugene Jukes. So despite the fact he finished the first day on a rather sad note for him, he started the second day on a very good note. This is the second group of the 110-metre hurdles in the decathlon, the 6th event in this grueling 10-event slog for the gold, the silver and the bronze medal. Simon Pullman, who will run in lane number 7, presently lying in 3rd position, 42 points behind the man on his outside, David Steen. In lane number 2, the reigning champion and very much in control of this competition as well, Daley Thompson, looking unusually grim and subdued this morning for the 6th event. He's been involved in a rather unedifying controversy overnight about the non-appearance of the sponsor's name on his singlet yesterday. And he, in fact, has relented to the requirements of the organisation committee. And you can see there the name of the sponsor on his T-shirt this morning. Away first time in the 110 metres hurdles, and a good start by Thompson, and a good run coming here from Simon Pollman as well. It's Thompson leading from Pollman at the moment through the 50-metre mark, and Thompson well in control, winning his 6th straight event, but Simon Pollman chasing him all the way to the tape. That's a very good performance by Simon Pollman. This is one of his strongest events, and he showed just why he is such a good hurdlist by giving Daley Thompson a good run for his money there. Thompson winning the 110 metres hurdles just like he's won every other event in the decathlon, but Simon Pollman coming in 2nd place, and that's history because in 1964 a New Zealander, Peter Snell, won this final. It's the man who's expected to dictate the early tactics of the race and the early pace, Joachim Cruz, who will run in lane number 6. Remember, in lanes for the first 100 metres. And there's Cruz out to a very fast start. The Americans running in lanes number 1 and 5. Earl Jones in 1, Johnny Gray in 5. And they get to the start of the back straight and they break. And we should be seeing Cruz here go straight to the front. That's what he's been doing in his first 3 races here. And he's settled into 2nd place at the moment as they come down to the 200-metre mark. The 2 Englishmen, Ovett and Coe, in the middle of the field.
And that's Edwin Coach from Kenya, who's taken the lead at the moment. So it's not the tactics that we'd expected. Cruz in 2nd place.
And then number 909, it's Earl Jones in 3rd place. Behind him is Ovett, then Coe, then Donato.
Well, it's not the crashing pace that it was yesterday, and this is playing into Seb Coe's hands. He's the gear change of the rest of the pacemakers.
So now the bell goes, 51.07, about 2 seconds slower than the 49 seconds that they were carted through the first 400 yesterday in Cruz's heat. Round the bottom bend they go with about 300 metres of the race to go, and it's still Edwin Coach from Kenya leading from Cruz from Brazil, then Sebastian Coe, and the 2 Americans lurking in the middle of the field. Ovett out the back.
That's Earl Jones in 3rd place, on the outside Johnny Gray from America, who's very strong. But here comes Billy Conchala on the outside.
Sebastian Coe starting to make a move with about 200 metres of the race to go. He's hanging on there in 3rd place, and he's tracking Cruz all the way. It's still Coe hanging on with just over 100 metres of the race to go. Sebastian Coe in 3rd place. Let's see if he can wind it up. But there goes Cruz. Coe is going with him. So are the Americans, but it's Cruz at the moment. Coming through is number 909, Earl Jones. But it's Joachim Cruz. The pre-race favourite is going to prevail. And Sebastian Coe once again deprived of a gold medal over 800 metres. Just like he did in 1980, he has to finish in 2nd place. And the gold medal goes to this man, Joachim Cruz from Brazil.
Well, that was tremendous. Everybody said this man had the strength to do it, and he did. He's got to run 1,500 metres in a few days' time. What tremendous racing he's had, and what relief it must be to know that he picked off that title. And poor old Seb Coe, the gear changer, couldn't do it today. He doesn't look exhausted, but he couldn't wind into that. Fabulous sprint finish that he has. And the time of Joachim Cruz will be a personal best for him and an Olympic record. 1:43 flat is what we saw. The Olympic record, 1:43.5. And that is Alberto Wantarina's. If you can remember the debate some years ago, the tall, big men were going to run 800 metres, they said, when Wantarina came here, the 400, 800 man. And then along came Coe, who was small and really an 1,500 man again. And now we come back to Joachim Cruz, who's tall, strong, but not 4'8", 15'8". This man, Cruz, was great today.
Sanders runs out of lane 1. Then one of the favorites, it's Don Page from Westchester, PA in lane 2. Earl Jones in lane 3, and the rest of the field comprised of John Marshall, Johnny Gray, who is 24 years old today, Stanley Redwine, Pete Richardson, and on the outside, the man who just loves to come from behind, James Robinson, the graduate of Cal Berkeley.
Staggered start, and they'll stay in their lanes until they reach the backstretch.
And James Robinson out there on lane 8 on the far right of the screen right now has a great advantage because he can cut in anywhere he wants. And we can see he's chosen to drop way into last place. It kind of surprises me that he's doing this in the final with so many good runners in front of him. He went right to the front last week to win the American Championships, and this week he's using the opposite tactic.
That's Earl Jones who has the lead. That's Stanley Redwine from Arkansas in second place at the moment. As usual, James Robinson, easy to spot in the candy stripe green and white top, is running last as they approach the halfway mark. John Marshall of Villanova is now in third place. So at the 400-meter mark, Earl Jones, who finished second to Joaquin Cruz in the NCAA meet, is the leader.
50 seconds. This is very fast, and Don Page right now is just about 10 yards ahead of James Robinson, but they're both way in the back. These men should be falling off this pace very quickly now. It was very fast for the first 400 meters.
Johnny Gray is making up some ground. Now here comes Page, but Page is in 5th place. Robinson is in 7th place. As they begin to turn it on, Robinson now moves into 6th place, but it's still Earl Jones the leader. And here comes Robinson up on the outside. And Page fading now.
He's in trouble. He can't get around them. He'll never make it.
6th place. Robinson is in 4th position. He's trying to come up on the outside. It's Jones and Gray, and it's Robinson, I believe, just barely finishing 3rd. He crossed the line side by side.
In lane 1 from Wellington, Anne McKenzie.
She had a personal best for 1,500 metres at Hamilton. She could be a surprise here tonight in the 800 metres, Anne McKenzie.
In lane 2 from Australia, Heather Barrelett. In lane 3 from England, Shireen Bailey.
Formerly Shireen Hassan ran for England at the Commonwealth Games in Brisbane.
Lane 4 from Poland, Jolanta Janutka.
Yes, she was a semi-finalist at the World Championships in Helsinki.
And in lane 5, another visitor from England in Lorraine Baker.
Second at Hamilton, second in the British Championships, Lorraine Baker.
2 local runners in 6 and 7. Firstly, in lane 6 from Auckland, Leslie Croxton.
New Zealand champion Leslie Croxton, 19 years of age.
And in lane 7 from Auckland also, Robin McCondack.
Right up with a personal best at Hamilton, 2:11.9 clocking for Robin McCondack. Well, John Davies, Anne McKenzie there, a good run from her. It's not really her distance, is 800. She's better over the 1,500.
But she's really fired up this season, done a lot of work.
Away in the women's 800 metres, and that's Anne McKenzie on the inside lane from Wellington, who ran extremely well in the 1,500 metres. She would have seen Peter Peelis do it in the men's 800 tonight. Clocking time for Peelis is 1:48.52, and she's got in behind Heather Barrelett, but Lorraine Baker, who did the front running at Hamilton and then was run down in the straight, looks like she's having to get into second place at the moment. So there's the first 4 as they come across, and Leslie Croxton, the New Zealand champion, is 1:86, who's gone across in about 5th place. At the 200 metres mark, it's Barrelett, Australia, Baker of England, then McKenzie, New Zealand, Janutka of Poland, and in 5th place is Leslie Croxton of New Zealand. Then Shireen Bailey, and behind her is Robin McCondack.
First 200 metres, just over 31 seconds, so the pace is on at the moment. McKenzie needs to stay in contact at this crucial point of the race.
So 400 metres left. It's 1:66. Lorraine Baker behind Heather Barrelett, then Jolanta Janutka of Poland, and McKenzie of New Zealand is staying there. So is Leslie Croxton, but the gap is just opening now back to the 2 New Zealanders. Shireen Bailey in 6th place, Barrelett and Baker. It's going to be a good finish, 300 metres out.
Well, Baker made an early challenge in Hamilton and lost as a result of that. Will she do the same here tonight? She's into a headwind and sticking out and getting just as much of it as Barrelett is in the inside lane. And McKenzie there in 4th place still. She's drifting off the pace at the moment, but she could get a personal best here. But the race out in front is still a very good one.
Barrelett lengthening the stride. It's the opposite way around as it was in Hamilton. Baker led them in at Hamilton and then got run down by Barrelett. Let's see how they go up the straight tonight. Heather Barrelett, Australia. Lorraine Baker of England. Jolanta Janutka of Poland in 3rd place. Then the New Zealanders, back in the field, but it's Barrett, Baker, and the Polish girl coming home strongly. But Heather Barrett is first. Baker second. Jalufta third. Bailey fourth. Mackenzie was fifth. And Mackenzie beat the New Zealand champion, Leslie Croxton, who came home in sixth place.
Andre Vera, Jose Abascal, Steve Cram, looking very relaxed. Jim Spivey, no difficulty picking him up with the long mop of hair. 780, Omar Khalifa, 24-year-old from the Sudan. 797 is Peter Wirtz from Switzerland. And eager to go, number 388, Steve Ovett from Great Britain. He hasn't had much to remember here in the way of pleasantries at Los Angeles in 1984. And the big question mark over his health after that 800-metre race of his, how will he perform today? There's Tony Rogers, number 694, and right on the outside, completing the lineup, is Riccardo Materassi from Italy.
Well, best of luck, Tony Rogers, and Huntley, you be right behind this man, because it's a great moment for him. I guess every school kid in Huntley be watching today to see the schoolmaster, Tony Rogers, lining up for the biggest race of his career.
And so one of the great classics of any Olympic Games, the men's 1500 metres final is underway. And Tony Rogers having to come wide from his position, wide out on the start at the back of the field as they make their way down the back straight, going through the 200-metre mark for the first time.
And just look at the tactics already. Omar Khalifa in the front, and Seb Coe rushed through there to get a good position and stopped, and the whole field bunched up behind him.
Of course, the modern history of 1500-metre races at major meetings, at World Championships and Olympic Games in recent times has been, they've been very slow, virtually being reduced to sometimes a 300 or 400-metre race. And there we see some rough stuff with the Sebastian Coe with a little check. He nearly got tripped up as well by the man behind him, Riccardo Materassi. At the moment, it's Coe running there and just in second place. Behind the man that's leading the field, Omar Khalifa from the Sudan. Behind him is Cheshire, the Kenyan. Steve Scott in fourth place, Riccardo Materassi on the outside, Steve Ovett also running very wide, and Tony Rogers at the back of the field. And down on the inside you can see Steve Cram. He's probably emerged as the favourite through the first 400.
Now the pace is not hot at all, and you could see Jose Pascal, I think it was, shooting up on the outside there, but there goes Steve Scott now going to pick the pace up. Now this is unusual for Scott. He usually likes to sit back in the pack and kick with 300 metres to go. I've noticed Scott in the last 3 or 4 weeks in his races been very, very tense, uptight. He looks a lot better tonight. This is good for him, I think. Surprise the other guys, make them think and worry.
Steve Scott showing an aggressive hand in the second lap of this 1500-metre final. Khalifa behind him. Coe tracked Scott when he went. Still there in second place with 2 laps to go. Tony Rogers at the moment in about 8th place as he makes a little move through.
And Jose Abascal running up there in 3rd place. He's a danger in this race as well. Rogers needs to get in if he can. He doesn't need to worry too much. All of these runners will hang the pace for a little while.
And Steve Cram hasn't shown a hand yet. Still there in 5th place, but he can win off any pace, of course, as he's shown at the Commonwealth Games, the European Championships and the World Championships last year. Now he starts to move up onto the shoulder of Cheshire. But it's still Steve Scott as they make their way down the back straight for the 3rd time.
And Seb Coe looking around, seeing there's Steve Cram, and that's a man he must be worried about. Can Coe out-kick Cram? And Ovett right behind them as well. The Englishman, I guess, hoping to pick off 3 medals here.
And Abascal making his move. A Spaniard who's done 3:33. Takes them down the home straight with 1 lap to go. Coe in 2nd place. Cram ever so quietly, ever so imperceptibly moving into contention. He's in 3rd place. Behind him is Ovett. So the 3 Englishmen all there at the bout. Less than 400 metres to go in the 1500-metre final.
And here comes Jim Spivey. Scott doesn't look good. Spivey coming up, and Ovett has pulled out of the race. He had trouble with his breathing. He's pulled out, so only 2 Englishmen in it now. Abascal, there's the man, pulled out of the race, Ovett. Coe and Cram poised, ready to go.
Just keep an eye on Steve Cram, the tall blonde locks of Steve Cram on the outside. 200 metres to go. It's down to the 2 Englishmen, I think. Coe and Ovett. Ovett is gone, but it's Coe and Cram. And Pascal there as well. 150 metres of the race to go.
And I don't think Coe has given it everything yet. You can see Cram, the determination on his face. He's waiting for the straight also.
Coe kicks, and Coe's gone, and I don't think Cram's got anything. He can't come again. It's going to be Sebastian Coe at last. But Cram coming back. And Sebastian Coe gets his first gold medal at the 1984 Olympic Games. And Steve Cram couldn't match Coe over the last 100 metres. 3:32.53, a new Olympic record for 1,500 metres, and the gold medal for Sebastian Coe, retains his title from Moscow 4 years ago.
Number one, he says.
Years ago, Mike Malloy of New Zealand, Michael Gilchrist of New Zealand, Ross Ollerenshaw of Auckland, Colin McDonald of New Zealand, and Peter Elliott, who's shifted from the 800 metres, especially to this mile race. So there he is, John Walker. But has he got one more big one left in him for this season? Number 100, John Walker. He has the best New Zealand time in New Zealand of 3:50.58 on this track. There's Peter Elliott, who ran so well in the 1,500 metres at Hamilton on Thursday. So it's going to be Walker on the inside, Pat Scammell of Australia, Mike Hillard, and they're lining up now for this mile. That's a big field for the mile, John Davies.
It's very big. It's too big for some of the New Zealanders that want to make a time, like O'Donoghue, Gilchrist and Rogers.
All right, lads. On your mark.
So racing in the 1 mile, and straight away Michael Gilchrist got a bad check, and that's one of the pitfalls of having a big field. There's a bit of pushing and shoving. Mike Boyd going through, but heading up to the lead.
This is absolutely incredible. We shouldn't be running as many of this in such an important race. This is Kim Lovegrove that's gone out into the lead at the moment. One of Auckland's better half-milers, and he's in there obviously as a pacemaker. But even so, people like Mike Malloy, and there's Gilchrist running wide, knowing he has to be up early to get into a good posse. A lot of pushing for these youngsters in this very first lap, but they're sorting themselves out now. There's Mike Boyd right back second last, and Don Page just ahead of him, sprinting around now.
So it's Lovegrove, the pacemaker, the rabbit, the bunny, call him what you will. He's out in the lead. Walker in second place. We'll have a look at the time as they come through. Hillard lies third. Mike Malloy, very well performed New Zealand in fourth place. Tony Rogers improving. And look at the big field. They're all straight out as they go through the first 440 yards. And it was about 57, John Davies.
56.9, very close to 57.
So they're sorting themselves out. The man going one wide on the curve, about fifth place. And just away to the right of the picture is Don Page. Remember, he won the 800 metres at Hamilton on Thursday. So it's Lovegrove, the pacemaker. Walker, there's a gap back to Hillard. Then Page in fourth place. Tony Rogers, fifth. Malloy, sixth.
Page very strong. He wants to do a good time tonight. They did try to get him to be the pacemaker.
There's Elliott back in the field, number 104. He kept out of the trouble, or at least we didn't see him. And he's there in sixth place. Second to last on the picture we see at the moment was Peter O'Donoghue. But it's Lovegrove, Walker. Page has got up with the pace. Hillard. There's O'Donoghue, number 152, with Mike Malloy and Mike Boyd behind him.
So all the eyes looking around. Who's where, says John Walker. He sees Don Page. Page coming through to take the pace. Look at the stride that man Page has. He's strong and powerful.
So through at about 154, Don Page, John Walker.
154.6 through 800 metres.
The pacemaker's gone, the crowd is up. Page leads from Walker. Hillard in third place, Peter Elliott in fourth.
So Hillard can't handle the pace. I felt right from the start if it was going to be 350, Walker would be the man to beat, but Page is giving him a run of his life.
So, okay, John Davies, this is pretty fast, isn't it?
It's very fast indeed, and they're on 350 pace. Walker's keen, he's hungry, he's hanging on to Don Page.
Well, I tell you what, I saw Don Page look at his watch, so he's out there working on the time as well. Don Page, USA, in the lead. John Walker, and Walker's looking pretty cool there in second place.
Walker looks cool, he's excited, and the crowd is right behind him. Page moving out sensibly, he's giving away the pace to Walker.
Okay, there's the big cheer. The big moment as Walker hits the front. 440 yards out.
252.7 the three-quarters, so that's under 350 pace. 253.5 at Gothenburg for Walker. He's under that. Page is called out. He's done his work.
So hear that from John Davies. John Walker is under 350 pace. Now has the big fellow on his own. 30 metres clear of anybody else. Has he got the speed inside of him, the strength to dig deep and go under that 350 mark? Walker out in the lead. He's 30 metres clear of Hiller. He's the only man in the picture.
He's tired, you can see him wobbling, but he's driving himself.
Well, it looks like Walker all over again. He's the only man in the picture as he comes up the straight. Hiller is second. Elliott is way back in third place with O'Donoghue. But here's Walker fighting hard, and look at the clock. Up the straight, John Walker. Great run for 351.26 for John Walker. Second is Hillard. O'Donoghue was perhaps...
That time, and it was just on 3 minutes. So I had to manage the last lap in under 60 seconds.
With 250 yards to go, 25-year-old Bannister took the lead with an amazing burst of speed. He went on to achieve the world record of a mile in under 4 minutes, sought after by athletes for over 40 years. His time was 3 minutes, 59.4 seconds.
It was only when they made the announcement, a track, British, Commonwealth, European, and then world record, and the time was 3 minutes, and the rest of the announcement was drowned in the noise.
Since the 6th of May, 1954, the day Roger Bannister became the first man to run a mile in under 4 minutes, to the present, a span of exactly 30 years, 10 athletes have bettered or lowered the world mile record. Each has taken a unique talent, fusing it with discipline and a ruthless determination to succeed. Each has learned to live with physical pain, accompany fear, and risk the unknown. Each has attained international celebrity. These are the Super Milers, the 11 members of one of the most elite clubs in world sport. Just 46 days after Roger Bannister became the first man to break 4 minutes for a mile, the world record was lowered by a further 1.5 seconds. The new holder, Australian John Landy. On the 7th of August, 1954, in Vancouver, Canada, in the Empire Games 1 mile final, the only two sub-4 minute milers in world athletics, Roger Bannister and John Landy, were to meet head-on for the first and only time. The strong favorite, Landy.
It's still Landy, followed by Bannister, with the rest strung out behind. Bannister's been taking it calmly up till now, but he's beginning to close on the Aussie. This isn't his famous final burst yet. The finish is still a long way off. Slowly, steadily, and very surely, Bannister's closing on Landy. Only 400 yards to go.
And now Bannister begins his finishing burst. 100 yards to the line, and he's passing.
I looked up and there was about 80 metres to go, and there was Roger in front of me, and I tried to make it up, but I couldn't, and he got to the line first. I think of all the recollections I've got of Roger Bannister, that would be the strongest.
Bannister falls almost senseless into waiting arms. That last fantastic burst sapped every ounce of energy from him. His time of 3 minutes 50.
I was a front runner, and my experience in Australia was running very much on my own. Without making any excuses, I don't think I really had any other way to run. There was nobody else in the race. I felt I had to take the lead. My plan was very simple, and that was to run Roger Bannister into the ground if I could. And I think I went fairly close to it. I just wasn't quite good enough.
Although John Landy broke Roger Bannister's world mile record, he will always be remembered as the man somewhat overshadowed by the Englishman. Yet Landy should be recognised as one of the first and bravest of the great front runners. A shy man, an athlete of extreme dignity, who ran for the enjoyment without being seduced by the accolades and glory. Today, recently retired as a civil servant, John Landy lives quietly with his family in the very Melbourne suburb where he was born and used to train.
But I always felt that I could have done better, and I guess every runner that's run the mile would feel that it was something that you could have done, to have run faster, or there was some race that you could have won.
Yorkshire, the rugged north of England. Its harsh winter weather is reflected in the grit and character of its people, especially its sportsmen, names like Jeff Boycott, Harvey Smith, and one of the best-loved athletes Britain has ever produced, Derek Ibbotson. For almost 2 decades, until he retired in the late 1960s, Derek Ibbotson trained around the roads and hilly streets of Huddersfield, where he was born and still lives today.
The determination from my Yorkshire background, obviously living in Huddersfield, which is a very, very tough place to live with lots of hills and quite cold weather, you get a lot of stamina, lots of strength and lots of determination because, you know, living is harder than it is in the south. This thing about Yorkshire grit and determination comes to you very early when you're hearing about the Yorkshire cricketers and the footballers and other athletes in this area. And so when you get into this position, you think, well, you know, I'm supposed to be very gritty and very determined, so I'm going to have to be. And it does help.
At the White City Stadium, London, on the 19th of July, 1957, in front of a capacity crowd on a field of the world's top milers, Derek Ibbotson was to run the most important race of his career. A race that would carry his reputation as an athlete for the next decade.
But Derek Ibbotson, number 71, steadily overtakes him. Now he's crossed, and pounding ahead at the top of it, looking more like a half-miler than a miler. This is the stuff records are made of, and the crowd's pretty sure another one's on the way. And they're not disappointed. Yards ahead of Delaney and the Czech, Ibbotson streaks for the tape to smash the world record by nearly a second in 3 minutes 57.2.
With it, you've got the dual stripe that we asked for. The double heel count has been left off, but I think that's a good idea. And the sole is exactly the one that...
Derek Ibbotson was the last of a generation of athletes that ran for the fun of it, the satisfaction, the honour. Although able to draw thousands of paying spectators into a stadium, from the day he left school, Ibbotson had to work for a living.
I think that'll really go well. The difference between my day and the present day is, of course, they are full-time, not, well, still I say professional. They are full-time athletes. They do nothing else but athletics. I mean, I have run at White City for Great Britain. When I finished work at lunchtime here in Yorkshire, taking the train down to London, taking the underground to White City, got there at 6 o'clock. I've been out on the track at 8 o'clock running for Great Britain. Yeah,
Many of the purists will tell you that Derek Ibbotson ran only one truly outstanding world-class race. But over a 15-year running career, he built up an immense following with the British people, and that following was well earned. Derek Ibbotson had paid his dues. Portsea, Australia, rolling white sand dunes facing the Southern Ocean. It was on these very dunes 25 years ago that one of the greatest middle distance runners of all time was deeply committed to a new style, a new technique of training, a total way of life pioneered by the legendary Australian coach Percy Cerutty. The runner's name, Herb Elliott, known as the Invincible, a runner who achieved it all and retired undefeated. Elliott reflects on the motivating force behind the Cerutty training method.
He was a person that was able to inspire, but he did it not directly, he did it indirectly, and he sort of fanned any appetite that you had in you to succeed. By the time you'd spent a quiet night, winter's night, with Percy around the fire at Portsea, and he'd talk about Beethoven, Jesus, Leonardo da Vinci, all the great people, not who just we know over the last 20 or 30 years, but over hundreds, maybe thousands of years. And somehow or other he gave you the idea that your little piece of greatness, whatever it may be, was a responsibility and a challenge to you. And by the time you'd finished maybe 3 or 4 hours just listening to the man, you were sure of being able to go out and run hell out of yourself for 3 or 4 weeks in training. A tremendously inspirational character. Running is a communion of the physical and the mental and the spiritual, and I have absolutely no doubt at all that the beauty of one's surroundings puts something inside you that fills that reservoir that you need during the hard moments of a race, that you can then sort of pour out and let go. And I used to always try and train in beautiful environments if I possibly could. I think communion with good people, communion with good places were things that built strength into you. I think I was probably the most intense trainer that I've come across in athletics in my time, or even today. And I think that's one of the reasons why I retired so early. My training was incredibly intense, and it was the way I raced intensely, and that's why I think I was never beaten.
Herb Elliott broke the world mile record in Dublin, Ireland on the 6th of August 1958, cutting a huge margin of almost 3 seconds off Derek Ibbotson's year-old mark. Although taking on all comers from all corners of the world, Elliott was never beaten in the 36-mile races he ran, and went on to break the 4-minute barrier a total of 17 times.
This is the moment that makes Elliott Wonder Run possible. The moment he knows that he can still go on, faster yet. Even the loyal Dublin fans give all their cheers, not to their own man, Ron Delaney, but to this amazing young hustler from Australia. How does he do it? Elliott attributes it all to his fitness. And as you watch him finish the Miracle Mile to end all Miracle Miles, marvel at the wonderfully calm way he takes this, his greatest race. It's the 8th time Elliott's run a 4-minute mile. But this time, it's well below 4 minutes. 3 minutes 54.5.
Herb Elliott's single greatest race was at the 1960 Rome Olympics, where he annihilated the opposition to win the 1,500-meter gold medal by 20 meters. On that day, Herb Elliott was truly invincible in a class and race of his own. In fact, his time was so fast, it would have beaten Sebastian Coe's winning 1,500-meter time at the Moscow Olympics by almost 3 seconds.
Guarding the rest of the field. Up to the take charged Elliott, a good 15 yards ahead of Ghazi. Rossavolgi third. For Australia and Herb Elliott, a great victory and a gold medal.
If you get to the top, there's nowhere else to go but down. But it wasn't really a logical decision. I didn't sit down and weigh all the pros and the cons. It was just a feeling that came from inside me. I'd had enough of it. And once you've had enough, then you have reached your peak. people could say that at 22 years of age, I had the world in front of me and I could have perhaps set the mile record 3 or 4 seconds further back than I did. But people who say that, I don't know whether they're stupid, but they certainly don't understand that to be a mile runner is not just a matter of your physical performance, it's a matter of your hunger to succeed. It's a matter of you feeling good about it and wanting to do it. And if you lose any of those ingredients, then you're at your top. And I, in fact, stopped at my peak, which is the right time to stop.
Having retired undefeated in both the 1 mile and 1,500 meters at the early age of 22, Elliott centered his life around bringing up a family. Today, he lives in a Melbourne suburb and works for a sporting goods company. Never capitalizing on his name in the pursuit of big money, he has been able to sustain his reputation as a man with principle and a touch of dignity, and will always be remembered as one of the very few master sportsmen who had the character to get out on the very top with an unblemished career. As a result, every major poll devoted to the mile in recent years has placed Herb Elliott up there amongst the top 2 or 3.
People would try so hard to win if they didn't hate to lose. I would have hated to have lost. I don't know what would have happened to my career if I had have lost. Perhaps I would have given it away. That would have been being a bad loser, wouldn't it?
The Health and Science University of Texas is today the sanctuary of the athlete who was to snatch Herb Elliott's world mile record and 1,500-meter Olympic title. A brilliant all-round sportsman from New Zealand, the Iron Man, Peter Snell. Built more like a sprinter than a middle-distance runner, Snell didn't appear to outpace his rivals, but outpower them.
I ran against individuals who are clearly much faster than I was. Their 400-meter time may be as 2 or 3 seconds faster, and yet as long as I made it tough enough during the race for them, I could outsprint them and appear to be faster at the end. That's in an 800-meter race. And I think the same can apply in a 1,500-meter. The sort of speed that you might see would be really no faster than about last lap in 52 seconds. Most runners in world class would be able to handle that fairly easy, but being able to do it at the end of a mile and 350 is a different story.
Nothing illustrates Snell's power better than one of his great performances in Modesto, California, where he ran the fastest mile ever in the United States.
But 200 yards from the tape, a tremendous burst of speed by Snell carries him to the lead. He opens a wide gap between himself and second place Weisiger. Beatty third, Grell fourth, and that's the way they finish. Here comes Snell, missing his own world record by half a second.
Taking the fact that Snell broke all conventions as to what size, weight, and physical shape the ideal miler should be, even in his prime, he was fascinated by the concept of pushing his own body to the limit of its endurance.
I believe I could get away with this sort of body size up to about a mile. I once ran a marathon in 1962 and was fine for about 22 miles and then lost 11 minutes. And I think I just simply ran out of muscle glycogen.
Snell's place in athletic history is secure through his string of records and titles. He twice broke the world mile record. He broke the world half-mile and 1,000-meter records and won 3 Olympic gold medals, including the 800 and 1,500-meter double in Tokyo in 1964, an achievement which still eludes today's best athletes. In fact, Peter Snell never lost when a major title was at stake.
Not everyone needs to have the so-called killer instinct. There are many athletes who have a different approach to this, and this might best be summed up by saying it is more fear of losing. Once I a runner has a reputation and that reputation goes on the line, you become concerned that someone else is going to sort of beat you and maybe sort of diminish that that status that you've acquired to build up. And so it's a slightly different approach to the idea of actually wanting to destroy your opponents.
After retiring from the track in 1966, Snell spent several years in public relations with the New Zealand Tobacco Company. But a growing discontent with the limitations of his life in New Zealand caused him to uproot and move to the United States. There in the early 1970s, he started again, devoting himself to the study of exercise physiology and human performance. He recently earned his doctorate. With a new wife, a new career, and direction in his life, Peter Snell is once again a motivated and committed man. Paris is a city that places its idols on a high pedestal, particularly sportsmen. Few Frenchmen have made it internationally in the field of athletics. In the past 50 years, only one has ever broken the world mile record and achieved genuine world supremacy in middle distance running. A man who in the mid-1960s was a French folk hero and to this day still commands wide national respect. His name? Michel Jarzy. Robert Pariente of France's prestigious sports magazine L'Equipe is a close personal friend of Jarzy. They have both done much to popularize athletics in France.
Le mile, c'est quelque chose de magique quand un record du monde du mile est battu. Les gens ont tendance à comparer cette performance au premier pas de l'homme sur la Lune, au mur du fond.
Michel Jarzy's favorite month is June. Of the 7 world records that he set in his distinguished career, 6 were broken in June. It was also the month in which he was born. A master against the clock, but failing to win a gold medal in 3 Olympic Games, when usually the favorite, Jarzy's greatest race was the night he lowered Peter Snell's world mile record in Rennes, France, in front of his legion of passionate French supporters. Today, Jarzy is giving of his vast experience in helping one of France's brightest middle-distance protégés, who with Jarzy's guidance is hopeful of making the French Olympic team bound for Los Angeles. But Jarzy will always be remembered for his precision running, that smooth, relaxed action that dominated an era in the mid-1960s. Lawrence, Kansas is a small agricultural community in Middle America, strong Ronald Reagan country. It is also the home of a celebrated middle-distance runner, probably the greatest America's ever produced. At the age of 19, he shattered the world mile record by over 2 seconds, and overnight became the first athlete to attain pop celebrity status. It was the era of the Beatles and the swinging 60s. Young success was the vogue. And Jim Ryan from Kansas was the man out front, the new generation of super athlete, the miler to beat. The 17th of July, 1966. The venue, Berkeley, California.
Ryan went to the front, setting a blistering pace, too hot for the rest of the All-American field. His target, to beat Frenchman Michel Jarzy's world best of 3 minutes 53.6. for an incredible last lap time of 56.3. Magnificent Ryan shattered the world mile record.
I remember distinctly thinking, you know, oh Lord, every race up to this point in time I've run 53 seconds or better on the last lap. And if I were to accomplish that, it would have been a sub 350 mile. But such wasn't the case. It was 56 seconds. And so I was thrilled and elated. But I think the most difficult thing afterwards was being able to, you know, when you're on the verge of success and supposedly accomplishing what you're supposed to achieve, there's this enormous emotional pressure. And when I finished, the media sort of closed in on me, wanting to photograph my every move. And I remember distinctly thinking, you know, finally, you know, they're possibly going to accept me as having made it at some point of success, and maybe they'll accept me as finally being a good runner.
Until the summer of 1968, Jim Ryan had achieved everything. He twice shattered the world mile record, eventually lowering it to 3 minutes 51.1 seconds. He bettered Herb Elliott's already outstanding 1,500-meter record by a huge margin of over 2 seconds. He also claimed the world half-mile record. Only one important goal remained, an Olympic gold medal. America expected it of him. But the Olympic Games were to haunt Jim Ryan. First Mexico in 1968, the 1,500 meters final. He was mercilessly criticized by the press for running a tactically poor race, leaving his final sprint far too late and coming in second to Kip Keino for the silver medal. The high altitude of Mexico was blamed. 4 years later in Munich, having trained harder than ever before, he was tripped and fell in an early heat and never even made the final. Heartbroken, bitter, Jim Ryan gave up the fight. To this day, he has never really recovered.
Munich was a terribly difficult situation for me, not so much because of the fall. I fell in the earliest round of competition. I was bumped by another runner. Later in the competition, a day later, they would show videos that I was indeed fouled. And you always know as a result of international competition, because it's kind of a bump, tassel sort of thing at different times, that there's that opportunity to get bumped and even fall in a race. So that wasn't the hard part for me. The hard part would come about 24 hours later when the International Olympic Committee, having looked at those films, would simply say, that's too controversial. We don't want to do anything. Come back in 4 years and try again. Now, I'm paraphrasing that a bit, but in essence, that's what they said. And for me, I was angry at that point in time because I simply couldn't justify the sacrifice that it would require. I knew what it had taken to get as far as I had, to wait another 4 years after Mexico City. Now to wait another 4 years and to put that same kind of sacrifice on a family that was growing. I had one child at that point, other children on the way, and for me to justify that was a terribly difficult thing. It was at that point in my life where I turned to God and I said, Lord, I need some help. I need some kind of way to resolve this. And eventually the Lord would show me that I had to forgive those men, which was the most difficult thing that I could ever do. It took me months before I could sit down and say, okay, I forgive them for what I thought was a very poor decision. And because I was able to do that, I can now go back to running and say it's fun again. But right after the Munich Olympics, I didn't want anything to do with running again for a long time.
12 years after the shattering experience of Munich, Jim Ryan is back in training, putting in over 100 miles a week on the very same Kansas roads that took him to those peaks of success and glory in the mid-1960s. Jim Ryan's love of running is again a motivating force in his life. In the 50-year history of the mile, only one African has ever broken the world record, Philbert Bayi, the mountain man who trained in the hills of Tanzania and who dominated middle-distance running in the mid-1970s. Bayi never had the advantage of specialist coaching. His track, his gymnasium, his weight training was against the natural terrain of his homeland.
Before I broke the world record for the mile or 1,500 meters, I didn't have this type of facilities, you know, like universal weight liftings, you know, bench presses and all those type of things. So, as I said before, hills were my weight training. So running on the hills, I really believe on that. And I still believe on running on the hills.
Bailly was the first of the modern generation of front-runners, those athletes who sprint from the gun until they break the opposition. For Bailly, this technique was not by design, but more an extension of his natural way of running. The orthodox middle-distance coaches and theorists frowned in disapproval, but for Bailly, the whole point of running was to destroy the opposition at the earliest opportunity.
You know, to beat Sebastian Coe, or to beat Ovet, or to beat John Walker, or to beat Steve Crum, you have to have speed. Otherwise, with no speed, you better not compete. I understand that. You know, they will kill. I mean, they will kill.
Bailly exploded into the forefront of world athletics at Christchurch, New Zealand at the 1974 Commonwealth Games, where he took the 1500-meter gold medal, beating John Walker and Ben Jipko, and also setting a new world record. One year later, in 1975, Bailly snatched Jim Ryan's 8-year-old world mile record in Jamaica.
The impossible has happened. Coghlan, the young boy from Ireland, just passed by, but Bailly put on a spurt. And as they come now to the 3/4 mile, Bailly 2:55.5. Bailly of Tanzania, the one who they say runs 14 miles every day to school. 3.5 miles to school in the morning, 3.5 miles back for lunch, 3.5 miles back to school, and 3.5 miles again in the afternoon home. And there you seem to be pulling away. You seem to be pulling away. And they come now for the last 100 meters. Now it's about 120 there. And he looks behind again at Jordan and puts on that final spurt. Can he match the 53.7 that Ryan did when he broke that mile record? Or what will the time be? They come now, Tanzania's Philbert Bailly has won the Dream Mile. Philbert Bailly becomes the world's #1 mile.
I have a record mile in front of the Prime Minister, Jamaican Prime Minister, in front of the 35,000 people, you know, watching me at night. And I like to fit the 1500 meters in Christchurch, but in the Commonwealth Games in front of the Queen, you know. So I really like both of them, and they're really great.
After making his mark in the mid-1970s, Bailly never again scaled the same peaks of success. He moved over to the steeplechase and won a silver medal in the Moscow Olympics, and he's now again in training for the Los Angeles Olympics. Whatever future success lies ahead for Philbert Bailly, his immortality is secure as the only African to break the world mile and 1500-meter records, something even the other great African runners, Kip Keino and Mike Boyd, were never able to achieve. The joy of running free has never been better expressed than on this open expanse of rolling dunes on the Tasman Sea on the northern coast of New Zealand. This is the training ground of one of the most charismatic middle-distance runners of all time. A runner who popularized athletics as much through his personality and physical appeal as through his immense achievements on the track. His name, John Walker, the first athlete ever to run a mile in under 3 minutes 50 seconds. It's the 12th of July, 1975. The venue, Gothenburg, Sweden.
I'd gone over and over in my mind so many times how many times I was going to run that race. I mean, I didn't think about winning, I thought about breaking the world record. I had 10 hours just sitting in the bedroom, getting up, sleeping, watching the wind, watching the flags. I mean, this was all a part of the race. I imagined myself in my mind coming down the last 120 meters all the time. And this was my final victory. I mean, this was my day.
John Walker, New Zealand.
I mean, I was absolutely ecstatic because I knew as soon as I crossed the line, the reaction from the crowd, the reaction from the press, that I had broken the world record. I didn't know I'd run under 350, and it was only, I was travelling with a journalist by the name of Ivan Agnew, who was also writing a book called Kiwis Can Fly at the time, and it was only when he sort of thrust a watch under my face and said, "You've broken 350," I had no idea what the time was.
And the regular time, 3:49.6.
It wasn't until I got back to the hotel room, I mean, all the adulation had died down, the 3 victory laps, the flowers, the kisses, I mean, the waving to the crowd, I mean, all that had gone. And it wasn't until I got back to the hotel room and settled down with a couple of beers that the phone started ringing from all over the world. Then I realised what I'd done.
1 year after becoming the first man on Earth to run a mile in under 3 minutes 50 seconds, John Walker confirmed his place in history as one of the all-time great middle-distance runners. It's Montreal, 1976, the last lap of the Olympic Games 1500-meter final. Walker puts on a display of majestic power running and takes the gold medal.
No one cares about second or third. If you can take the silver medal or the bronze medal in Olympic Games, no one really cares. I mean, the gold medal is the pinnacle. I mean, it's the answer. No one really writes about second or third. It's the champion is the person who wins, and the person that can stave off and beat the best in the world. Winning is everything. If you don't win, I mean, you're nothing. And the adulation and the publicity that came from breaking 350 was probably 4 times more than ever winning the Olympic gold. I wasn't expected to run under 350 for the mile. I was expected to win the Olympic gold medal. But I think winning the gold medal really captured and captivated the whole career. I mean, 1976, my career basically finished, although I'm still running today, because I had reached the pinnacle of anyone's career. I'd broken 2 world records. I had run under 350 for the mile, and finally I won the Olympic gold medal. I couldn't do any more in my life.
Nearly a decade after the triumph of Montreal, John Walker is still punishing his body, still running mile events in track meets around the world. He has now run more sub-4-minute miles than any other man, at last count not far short of 100. The critics say he's afraid to retire, afraid of the void beyond, the emptiness of a life without running, without public adulation. Although in the seclusion of his ranch in Auckland, with his dogs and horses, he finds a certain release and contentment, unquestionably, Walker has a need and an addiction to keep running, and still holds aspirations of making it back to the very top. But time is no longer on John Walker's side.
I still believe, even at my age, that I can run close to 3:47.5. I honestly felt that in 1975, when I was really at peak, that the night that I ran 3:49.4 was nowhere near the capabilities of what I could do. And then after that, I spent 3 years of frustration with injuries. And I guess when you said before, what makes an athlete come back from injury? This was one reason, because I really honestly believed that I had not achieved the best in my career.
I'm not as experienced at running miles or 1,500 meters as a lot of my compatriots. And certainly I'd run probably fewer miles or 1,500 meters before I actually broke the world record, and I would have thought anybody in the history of the sport.
Coming through, they're on schedule for a similar sort of pace on the second lap. As they go through, that's about 1:55 for the half mile. And out goes Lacey, so it's now up to Steve Scott of America, and Sebastian Coe's gone with him, and they're leaving the field. A gap has opened up. Wessinghagen not able to move with them.
As far as a lot of people in the field were concerned, I was a jumped-up 800-meter runner. And it was the height of arrogance, really, to step out onto the track with the likes of John Walker and Steve Scott and the Dave Moorcroft, guys like this. And I genuinely felt, I mean, I'm being honest, I genuinely felt that I would be chewed up a little bit in that third lap. And I'm afraid I found it very, very easy.
The world's finest runners, and Scott and Coe are well out in front, and Scott has to keep going because he must be terrified of Coe's ability. Coe's devastating finish, and look how relaxed he is.
It was a very strange feeling. I was still expecting it to hurt a great deal more than it was. And secondly, I couldn't believe that a field of milers of the class of the Walkers and the Scotts were actually allowing me to get away from the field. Obviously at the time I had no idea that it was as fast as it was, and that possibly they were struggling a little bit.
Coe at the bell, he's going to be ahead of the field, he looks over his shoulder. The time at the bell
is 2:53. They're not only onto a great race here, but we're onto a very, very fast time. If Coe can finish with the same sort of strength and aggression that he did as he takes Scott on this last lap, we could be on for a world record even. It's Coe now, 8-9 yards in front of Steve Scott, the American, and yards in front of the rest of the field, who are bunching in pursuit. They're sorting out, but really it's a matter of strength. It's Coe now against the clock, and all of the field could be on for a very fast time, but it's Sebastian Coe really making the rest of this field look very, very pedestrian.
He's looking round, but he must be confident. A slight grimace, but he's so relaxed, and he's coming away all down this field. Now they're waking up in the pack behind, but it's too late, they're forgotten. Coe's got time to look around, the crowd are rising, and the time extremely fast, very near that world record, 3...
Performances in the sprint events in the junior category have improved less notably over the past 5 Olympic periods than in other athletic events. In the 100 meters, in the women's 100 meters, Tina Ihiagwan of Nigeria set the pace unmolested by any rival, completing the race in a time of 11.34 seconds. The results obtained at the first World Championships in Helsinki in 1983 revealed that no differences were found between European and overseas athletes in terms of the velocity course over the first 30 meters. In the following section, though, the course differs notably. The 2 peaks of the curve, seen here, indicate a different technique of running of the overseas sprinters. That was confirmed by measurements at the first World Junior Championships. The first 100 meters was run faster than the second flying start section. Oniale 0.24, Krabbe 0.19 second faster. The difference seems to point to a reserve endurance potential in the 2 girls. The time difference between the first and second half of the race is a rule of thumb criterion showing the level of technique and endurance. In the men medalists, on the contrary, the time difference between the first and second 100-meter section indicates an optimum level of speed endurance. Carr 0.70, Florence 0.38, McBain 0.61 second. The difference might have been more notable if the runner-up hadn't slowed down in the finish. In Carr's case, though, the velocity cause fully corresponded with current knowledge, an analysis of data collected in 1978 to 1985, much as for the 100 and 200 meters. It was on the basis of the model times that the 400 meters event at the first World Junior Championships in Athens was evaluated. Endurance and economy are among the conditions crucial for success in the 400 meters. Too much or too little speed in the first half of the race affects the quality of the performance. Even the very best athletes have a chance of improving their performances through better economy of speed. The junior world champions, Murphy and Seeger, as well as the runner-up, Hernandez, had far too much speed in the first half of the race, resulting in significant speed losses in the second half of the race, particularly over the last 100 meters. Miles Murphy of Australia won by the skin of his teeth in 45.64 seconds, with the favourite Roberto Hernandez of Cuba second in 45.64 seconds too. The relatively poorer performances were caused by too much effort of most of the runners in the first half of the race. In the sprint relay, baton change technique is determined by comparing the performance of the relay team and the sum of the best times clocked by the members of the team in the 100 meters. The efficiency of baton change can also be judged in terms of the time required for the baton time inside the exchange zone. In the men's event, outstanding times are 1.90 seconds and less. In the women's event, 2.00 seconds and less. The gold medalists at 39.80 seconds, Great Britain, had the best baton change time in the second baton change, 1.94 seconds. In the same zone, the teams of the Federal Republic of Germany and Poland had the fastest times, 1.92 and 1.94 seconds respectively. In the girls' case, the fastest baton change times were the gold medalists, the United States, second baton change, 2.12. Their winning time was 43.78 seconds. The runners-up, the German Democratic Republic, the first baton change, 2.14 seconds. The bronze medalists, Nigeria, the third baton change, 2.15 seconds. In the 4x400 meters relay, the performance is decided by the individual performances of the relay members in the 400 meters. The efficiency of baton change can also be judged in terms of the time required for the baton time inside the exchange zone. In the girls' 400-meter relay, the best times were clocked by the fourth runners. In the winning United States relay team, with a total time of 3 minutes 30.45 seconds, Vickers 51.96 seconds. In the silver medalists, the German Democratic Republic, Seeger 51.27 seconds. And in the third Soviet relay, Pesna-Pevtseva 50.63 seconds. All the members of the winning United States relay covered their sections in less than 46 seconds. The fastest man in the team was the first runner, Kempel, who clocked 45.44 seconds. The United States relay set a new junior world record of 3 minutes 1.90 seconds, the only one at the Athens Championships. The fourth runner in the Cuban runner-up relay, Hernandez, clocked 44.73 seconds. The supremacy of athletes from African countries was obvious in the middle and long distance events. The men won 11 out of a total of 18 medals and won all events except the 800 meters, with athletes from Kenya and Ethiopia in a dominating position. Athletes from Great Britain and Spain did quite well too. In the women's events, the Romanian girls did best, winning 4 medals. In the men's 800 meters, the runners slowed down considerably in the second half of the race. 400 meters intermediate time, 54.6 seconds. The winner, thanks to a powerful drive 300 meters before the finish, was the favorite, Sharp of Great Britain. The surprising runner-up was Balmaceda of Chile, who had left an unnecessarily great deal of leeway in the first half of the race, but in the end managed to improve his personal best mark. The final was marked by a lot of tactics, so that the best time was achieved in one of the semi-final heats by Melniak of Yugoslavia. In relative quality, the women's 800 meters was far better than the men's event. The pace was set for most of the distance by Sedlakova of Czechoslovakia, but in the end, Cheer of Kenya had more stamina. The Romanian girls again showed their fine level of training. The bronze medal was won by Dumitru. A strange situation occurred in one of the qualifying heats of the women's 1500 meters. A mighty tumble was the result of an unfortunate stumble of Wendy Wright of Great Britain. The final belonged to 17-year-old Ana Padarian of Romania, who clocked the best time. The silver medal was won by Selina Cheer of Kenya. And we're likely to hear a lot more of the bronze medalist, 16-year-old Snezana Pajkic of Yugoslavia. All the medalists in the men's 1500 meters were younger than 19. The winner, Kiranch of Kenya, was only 17 in Athens. He won the gold medal largely thanks to an excellent finish, covering the last 300 meters in 39 seconds and the last 200 meters in 25.7 seconds. David Sharp was unable to repeat his coup from the 800 meters and finished down in the 5th place. The medalists in the women's 3,000 meters set the pace throughout the race. Cleopatra Palacian of Romania managed to keep her lead after a slower middle of the race in the fast finish, ahead of Philippa Mason of Great Britain and another Romanian girl, 17-year-old Dorina Kalenic. The most successful of the runners at the championships was barefooted Peter Chumba of Kenya, with gold medals from both long-distance races. He won the 5,000 meters thanks to his excellent finish, covering the last 400 meters in 57.4 seconds and the last kilometer in 2 minutes and 35 seconds. Alejandro Gomez of Spain, the runner-up, was the only non-African medalist in the long-distance races. In what was the premiere of the longest women's distance, the 10-kilometer race, the clear winner was Clay of the German Democratic Republic, with magnificent speed in the second half of the race. 15-year-old Maraga of Kenya was runner-up. The bronze medal was won by Renders of Belgium, who amazed by an extremely long stride, comparable with men's stride patterns in the same event. The boys, too, ran the 10,000 meters for the first time at a top international junior meet. All the 3 medalists did very well indeed. Tables worked out on the lists. Peter Chumba and Debebe Demisa of Ethiopia were both 1 year under the age limit. The Europeans, who had so far run only 5,000 meters in European championships, will have to start getting used to this event. An interesting feature is the men's 20-kilometer road race was another premiere at the Athens Championships, one that is very valuable in terms of preparing future marathon runners. The winner and the runner-up achieved a fairly good result, taking into consideration the weather conditions, coming in almost 3 minutes ahead of the other competitors. Stefan Freigang of the German Democratic Republic came in 4th in both the 10 and 20 kilometers to become the best long-distance European. It's worth mentioning that the 2 Ethiopians, the winner Tadesse Gebre and the bronze medalist Negash Dube, are both 18, and that the runner-up Juma Munian Panda of Tanzania won the silver medal in both the 10 and 20-kilometer races. In terms of performance, the 2,000 meters steeplechase can be described as the highest quality track event at the Athens Championships. With a few exceptions, including the bronze medalist, Kip Koech of Kenya, most of the runners had a fine obstacle clearance technique. Juan Azucheta of Spain left nobody in any doubt of his abilities. In terms of high drama and performance levels, the track events at the first World Junior Championships were on a very fine level indeed. The final was won by Heike Tillak of the German Democratic Republic. In an extremely tough race, she clocked 13.10 seconds, ahead of Alyuska Lopez of Cuba and Tanya Davis of the United States. In the men's 110-meter hurdles, the favourites were the best two men from the European Championships at Cottbus in 1985, Ridgeon and Jackson of Great Britain. They won their respective qualifying heats quite comfortably. The final went to Colin Jackson, who clocked an excellent 13.44 seconds. Ridgeon was runner-up, Valle of Cuba was third. hurdle clearance is a crucial factor that... The 400 meters hurdles, an event that was studied and analyzed in the same way as the short hurdle events. Long-term measurements were used to produce model intermediate times that were subsequently used for assessing speed distribution and stride rate throughout the race. The results can be found in the report of the championships. The gold medalist, Claudia Basel, had 5-second rhythmic units between the hurdles until the 4th hurdle. Her worst time was in the 7th rhythmic unit. Emilio Valle of Cuba, the runner-up in the men's event, had the best time in the first rhythmic unit, 3.90 seconds, and the worst time in the last unit, 4.71 seconds.
he has already betted anyway, and quite easily winning the contest here at the National Championships. Meanwhile, in the pole vault, last chance for Simon Pollman at 495.
And good close effort, but he licked it off. Simon Pollman happy to win.
So that's Simon Pollman out of the contest. He may have won it. That all depends on whether Derek McKee can be successful at 495 on his third attempt. If not, then he and Pollman have both failed at 495, but the countback will give the title to Pollman.
Derek McKee missed that, but he'll sit with Simon Pollman on third on the New Zealand all-time list behind Peter Tracy and Kieran McKee, and he gets a silver medal in this competition.
There's the winner, Simon Pollman from Auckland, having taken out the contest with a best of 480 on the first attempt. Derek McKee second, having got it on his third attempt, and third place to Kieran McKee at 465.
And so that's how it finished in the pole vault, with Simon Pollman of Auckland winning with a best vault of 4 metres 80. And that concludes proceedings here at QE2 Park in Christchurch, the end of what has been a very busy day up and down the country. Just recapping on the tennis from Stanley Street, Australia won the Davis Cup.